Chapter 3297. Thousand Spirit Mountain Range. Heat waves and flames rushed to the sky. The reason why the 4 flame mountain ranges were the test of the heavenly venerables was that the 4 heavenly fires were extremely powerful. Like the burning myriad spirit ancient E in Thousand Spirit Mountain Range, they were golden in color. They were formed from the various flames that could be controlled and released by all living beings. Crossing Thousand Spirit Mountain Range was not just about enduring the burning of the myriad spirit ancient E. After climbing to a certain height, the myriad spirit ancient E would evolve into all kinds of living beings to attack the climber. The closer one was to the top of the mountain, the more powerful the living beings evolved by the myriad spirit ancient E would be. It was said that at the top of the mountain, one might even be besieged by the myriad spirit ancient E's phoenix, vermilion bird, and other powerful races. The elimination battle had just begun, and the rankings on the vermilion bird list changed very frequently. Almost every moment, there were cultivators' rankings rising or falling. Thousand Spirit Mountain Range was the first flame mountain range after all. At this moment, all the heavenly venerables were in peak condition and were rushing forward fiercely. As time passed, the heavenly venerables got closer to the top of the mountain, and the gap gradually became apparent. Many cultivators had already exhausted a lot of energy to resist the burning of the myriad spirit ancient E. They were even more stretched when facing the various ancient E living beings and demonic beasts. There were many Empyrean powerhouses who slowed down after rushing halfway up the mountain. Some could not even move an inch. There were even some heavenly venerables who could not withstand the attacks of the ancient E living beings and took out their vermilion bird tokens to retreat from the battlefield. At this moment, some heavenly venerables were lucky enough to see the 5 sacred clans climbing the mountain. The 5 sacred clans did not have the same foothold, but the way they climbed the mountain was almost the same. On Thousand Spirit Mountain Range, the 5 sacred clans had their hands behind their backs and walked with their heads held high. They were neither fast nor slow, and their expressions were calm. The 5 of them did not even prop up their worlds, release their blood chi, or take out their divine weapons, but they easily reached the top of Thousand Spirit Mountain Range. They easily passed through the first Flame Mountain Range with just their physical bodies. Although the 5 sacred clans were the last to climb the mountain, they were one step ahead of the rest. Among the 5 of them, Zhu Liang was the fastest and ranked first on the vermilion bird list. After all, he had the vermilion bird bloodline. Even the 4 heavenly fires had a lower effect on him. Inside the ancestral fire's sacred ground, many cultivators were discussing the celestial venerate battle in the streets, restaurants, and other guests. The ancestral fire Holy Land was unable to watch the actual situation of the elimination battle. However, everyone was able to get a rough idea of what was going on based on the rankings on the Vermilion Bird Proclamation. As expected of the sacred race, they've caught up from behind and are far ahead. The saints' bloodline has returned to its ancestral state and their mortal bodies have transformed. To them, the 4 flame mountain ranges shouldn't be too much of a challenge. It all depends on who arrives first. I haven't seen that Su Zimo on the Vermilion Bird leaderboard. The Empyrean powerhouses taking part in the battle this time exceeded 100,000. However, only 1,000 names were displayed on the Vermilion Bird roll. I've noticed that his name hasn't appeared on the Vermilion Bird list. I'm guessing that Qinglian's bloodline has been greatly suppressed on the Thousand Spirit Mountain Range. After all, he is only at the small success stage of the Tao comprehending realm. His cultivation level is not high enough. I think the first to be eliminated are some Empyreans and Grand Empyreans. I didn't think that he wouldn't even make it onto the Vermilion Bird roll. It seems that we overestimated him. If the Vermilion Bird roll's ranking could display all the cultivators, Su Zimo would definitely be at the bottom. Ever since he stepped onto the 10,000 Spirit Mountain Range, he hadn't moved half a step forward. Instead, he stood motionless and looked at the burning 10,000 Spirit Ancient E around him. If someone passed by him, they would be shocked to see that there were 2 strange purple flames burning in Su Zimo's eyes. Spirit Potency Art, see what I see. Although Wu Dao's main body was locked and couldn't ascend to the Great Thousand World, He could use the spirit potency art to see everything in the Great Thousand World through the eyes of Qinglian's main body. The 4 flame mountain ranges were a heavy test for others. However, for Wu Dao's main body, it was a rare opportunity. Wu Dao's main body had already controlled the netherworld ghost flame. If he could control the other 3 heavenly flames, the number of flames in martial arts universe would reach 12. It would definitely be a huge improvement for Wu Dao's main body. Furthermore, once he controlled the heavenly flames, it would be much easier to cross the 4 flame mountain ranges. Wu Dao's main body controlled 9 Dao fires, and even his martial soul was a ball of flames. Apart from Wu Dao's main body was most proficient in and easiest to comprehend was the great Dao of fire and the various flames. With such a foundation, it was not difficult for Wu Dao's main body to comprehend the 10,000 spirit ancient. Furthermore, Wu Dao's main body had already stepped into the Dao manipulation realm and was at a higher realm. It would be easier for him to refine the 10,000 spirit ancient. Before long, Su Zimo's body shuddered and a golden flame rose in his eyes. It was the 10,000 spirit ancient. Thereafter, Su Zimo walked forward. The 10,000 spirit ancient that was burning in front of him opened up a path and did not harm him at all. In reality, it was only Wu Dao's main body that had comprehended and controlled the 10,000 spirit ancient Qinglian's main body had yet to comprehend it. However, the 2 true bodies came from the same source and were connected in mind. With the help of the spirit potency art, Wu Dao's main body could release the aura of the 10,000 spirit ancient through his eyes. In the perception of the 10,000 spirit ancient, Su Zimo was not a foreign species. He was the same as them. Su Zimo sped all the way to the top of the mountain at a fast speed. When the cultivators at the side saw this scene, they could not help but widen their eyes in disbelief. While resisting the burning of the 10,000 spirit ancient and the attacks of the ancient living beings, the heavenly venerables advanced extremely slowly. Every step was taken carefully. When had anyone seen such a method of crossing the 1,000 spirit mountain range? Even if the 5 sacred clans crossed the mountain, they would have to rely on their bodies to resist the 10,000 spirit ancient. It was impossible for them to travel at full speed. However, Su Zimo seemed to be fine in the 1,000 spirit mountain range. It was as though he was walking on flat ground without any obstruction. When they were about to reach the top of the mountain, Su Zimo caught up and had already reached the bottom of the vermilion bird ranking, charging into the top 1,000. "I've finally found you." Right then, a sneer sounded from the side. It was Heavenly Venerate Qinqiu who was stripped of his position. "Encountering me, Qinqiu, in the 1,000 spirit mountain range is a calamity that you deserve in your life." Qinqiu propped up a world and released his blood qi to block the attacks of the surrounding divine phoenixes and divine phoenixes. He charged towards Su Zimo in huge strides. He cultivated the ancient Great Dao. On the 1,000 spirit mountain range, his combat strength would be unleashed to the extreme. Before he arrived, a hint of suspicion flashed across Qinqiu's face. Why didn't the surrounding demon beasts transformed by the 10,000 spirit ancient attack him? Before he could react, Su Zimo turned around and stared at Qinqiu with eyes burning with golden flames. His spirit consciousness moved. Screech! The flames of the surrounding 10,000 spirit ancient surged and transformed into countless fiery red sparrows. Their bodies were bathed in golden lava as they charged towards Qinqiu crazily. End of chapter. Chapter 3298. What? When Qinqiu saw that, his expression changed drastically as he exclaimed. There was still a distance from the peak of the mountain. The myriad spirit ancient should not have transformed into a powerful living being like the vermilion bird. At most, it should be surrounded by divine phoenixes, the race of divine phoenixes. But now, not only did the myriad spirit ancient transform into a vermilion bird, but it was also attacking him. However, it did not have any hostility towards Su Zimo. How could that be? Qinqiu did not have time to think too much. Hundreds and thousands of vermilion birds had already closed in and launched a series of attacks at his world. He cultivated the ancient Great Dao and was originally like a fish in water on this myriad spirit mountain. Unexpectedly, he suffered a backlash from the myriad spirit ancient boom, boom, boom. Every vermilion bird seemed to have gone mad as they charged at him continuously. Chen Qiu had no time to care about anything else, let alone attack Su Zimo. The surrounding cultivators who passed by were also shocked when they saw that. No matter how strong Chen Qiu's combat strength was, he could not withstand the endless attacks of the vermilion birds. After all, these vermilion birds were transformed from the myriad spirit ancient in the mountain range and were endless. After Chen Qiu killed a group of them, he realized that there were more and more vermilion birds gathering around him. In the end, he was drowned. A moment later, his world was on the verge of collapse. Impossible! Impossible! Chen Qiu's mournful voice sounded from the flames in the sky, filled with indignation. Boom! Before long, his world was broken through by the vermilion birds. Without the protection of the world, Chen Qiu could not withstand the attacks of the vermilion birds by relying on his physical body, bloodline, and spirit treasures. In the blink of an eye, Chen Qiu was covered in wounds and his blood qi was depleted greatly. Exclamation point! A vermilion bird pierced his chest and exploded in his body, blasting a huge bloody hole in his chest. Chen Qiu's face was filled with resentment as he summoned the vermilion bird token. His body shone brightly and he retreated from Myriad Spirit Mountain with him. Su Zimo did not make a move from the beginning to the end. He merely watched the entire process quietly with his burning golden eyes. The surrounding cultivators exchanged glances with Su Zimo's golden eyes, and a chill immediately rose from the bottom of their hearts. Behind this pair of eyes, there seemed to be an extremely terrifying existence hidden, making one's heart tremble with fear. Su Zimo turned around and walked towards the top of the mountain. His journey was smooth. Soon, he crossed the Wanling Mountain and arrived at the foot of the second Flame Mountain, Burning Sky Mountain Range. Stepping onto the Burning Sky Mountain Range, Su Zimo stopped once again. The golden flames in his eyes dissipated, and a ball of purple flames reignited. Wu Dao's true body continued to refine the sky-burning purple flames on the mountain range. Ancestral fire's sacred ground. Look, that Su Zimo made it onto the Vermilion Bird Proclamation. To be able to enter the top 1,000, this person does have some tricks up his sleeve. In my opinion, he won't be able to keep it up. Among the 4 great heavenly flames, the all-spirit ancient is the easiest. That's right. The sky-incinerating purple flame behind it is an extreme yang flame. The divine 6-yin flame behind it is an extreme yin flame. After the extreme yang flame is the extreme yin flame. Most supreme heavenly venerates can't withstand it, let alone the netherworld ghost flames behind it. As everyone discussed, Su Zimo's ranking on the Vermilion Bird Proclamation disappeared and was replaced by other cultivators. Many cultivators chuckled when they saw that and were not surprised at all. The cultivators of the ancestral fire sacred ground naturally did not know that Su Zimo was currently refining the sky-incinerating purple flame and was overtaken by the latecomers. The sky-incinerating purple flame was an extreme yang flame. It was even easier for Wu Dao's true body to refine that flame compared to the all-spirit ancient yi. During this period of time, the illumination stone in Su Zimo's right eye also emitted a power that established a connection with the 2 true bodies. It was actually helping Wu Dao's true body comprehend the sky-incinerating purple flame. The illumination stone contained the purest power of yang. The power of the sky-incinerating purple flame was also within its range. Before long, Su Zimo began to move and headed towards the peak of the sky-incinerating mountain range. His journey was smooth and extremely fast. The surrounding sky-incinerating purple flame could not harm him at all. Halfway up the mountain, the sky-incinerating mountain range shook violently. Not good, the volcano is erupting and the sky-incinerating rain of fire is about to descend. The cultivators at the side were shocked. This was the greatest test for all the cultivators to cross the sky-incinerating mountain range. Once the volcano erupted, not only would there be boiling lava washing down from the peak, there would also be a rain of fire that filled the skies. Any carelessness and they would be buried within. Many cultivators did not dare to be careless and gripped their vermilion bird tokens in their palms hurriedly. If they saw that the situation was bad, they were prepared to escape at any moment. Su Zimo merely raised his head slightly for a glance before charging towards the peak without any signs of slowing down. Before long, black smoke filled the air and obscured the vision of one's spirit consciousness. It descended from the skies accompanied by a purple rain of fire. Except, this purple rain of fire did not stir up any waves when it landed on his body. It was like a clay ox entering the sea, disappearing very quickly. The lava that flowed down from the peak of the mountain arrived in front of Su Zimo. As if it had spiritual consciousness, it actually automatically parted, opening up a passageway. Su Zimo passed through layers of black smoke and a rain of fire, arriving at the peak of the sky-incinerating mountain range very quickly. And this time, he already surpassed the vast majority of cultivators. On the Vermilion Bird Proclamation, ranked 132nd. After the sky-incinerating mountain range was the Six Ding Mountain Range. Su Zimo ascended the Six Ding Mountain Range while Wu Dao continued to refine the Six Yin Divine Fire. With the help of the nether fluorescent divine stone in his left eye, the speed of Wu Dao's main body refining the Six Yin Divine Fire was also shockingly fast. The Six Yin Divine Fire was a fire of extreme yin. On this mountain range, one could not feel any heat at all. Instead, it was like falling into an ice cellar. The temperature suddenly dropped and thousands of miles were sealed in ice. Many Empyrean powerhouses had just crossed the sky-incinerating mountain range and experienced the baptism of the sky-incinerating purple fire. When they stepped foot into the Six Ding Mountain Range again, they could not withstand this sudden alternation between hot and cold and suffered heavy injuries. They had no choice but to withdraw from the struggle for Supreme Empyrean. Don't look at how that Su Zimo rushed to the front. Stepping foot into the Six Ding Mountain Range, he can't withstand it either. Precisely so. Right now, he's also fixed on the Six Ding Mountain Range, unable to take a single step. I reckon that he's currently resisting the conflict of extreme yang and extreme yin. Some Empyrean powerhouses saw Su Zimo standing on the Six Ding Mountain Range without moving and thought that Su Zimo was also obstructed by the Six Yin Divine Fire and found it hard to climb. Except, the crowd's discussion had yet to disappear when Su Zimo's figure moved. Like an arrow leaving the bowstring, he left behind a trail of dust, vanishing from everyone's sight. The expressions of all the cultivators froze, staring with their eyes wide and tongue-tied. And this time, Su Zimo's ranking on the Vermilion Bird Proclamation did not drop by much. He already set off once more, heading towards the peak of the Six Ding Mountain Range. Arriving halfway up the mountain range, the Six Ding Mountain Range also shook violently. Volcanic eruption. Different from the sky-incinerating mountain range, the volcanic eruption of the Six Ding Mountain Range would evolve into heavy snow that drifted down. The temperature on the mountain range would also drop once more. All of this did not affect Su Zimo in the slightest. When he stepped foot onto the peak of the Six Ding Mountain Range, the Vermilion Bird Proclamation's ranking already reached 32nd. Chapter 3299. Su Zimo is so fast. He's already at number 32 on the Vermilion Bird leaderboard. I don't think he has a chance anymore. The Netherworld Ghost Fire burns on the 4th mountain range and can burn a cultivator's blood chi. Only those of the sacred races who have undergone ancestral awakening can withstand such consumption. Look, he's already at number 31, 29, 25. Ancestral Fire's sacred ground. As everyone discussed, Su Zimo's ranking on the Vermilion Bird leaderboard was rising at an unimaginable speed. Everyone watched as Su Zimo's ranking continued to rise and he was getting closer to the top 10. What's going on? The Netherworld Ghost Fire doesn't seem to be hindering him at all? Is Su Zimo really going to enter the final battle? The final battle means that he'll have to face the 5 sacred races. That might not be a good thing for him. Above the Nether Mountain Range, Wu Dao's true body had already comprehended the Netherworld Ghost Fire, and there was naturally no need for him to waste time on it. Su Zimo continued advancing and surpassed heavenly venerate experts one after another. By the time he was halfway up the mountain, he had already entered the top 10 of the Vermilion Bird leaderboard. At the same time, The 5 sacred races on the Nether Mountain Range noticed Su Zimo's ranking on the Vermilion Bird leaderboard as well. Fu Zongqian's expression was cold as he thought to himself, "That's good as well. I'll get rid of him later." "Interesting." Xie Lin smiled gently. Zhu Liang narrowed his eyes and murmured, "That guy wants to fight us head-on. He's got some guts. Unfortunately, no matter how strong your backing is, it won't be able to save you in this battlefield." As for the Vermilion Bird badge, it was nothing more than a decoration in the eyes of the 5 sacred races. Unless Su Zimo used the Vermilion Bird badge to escape the moment he caught sight of them. Otherwise, given their methods, they would definitely not give Su Zimo the chance to use the Vermilion Bird badge once the battle broke out. Su Zimo continued advancing and surpassed 4 cultivators consecutively to reach number 6 on the Vermilion Bird leaderboard. As he approached the peak, the names of the top 5 on the Vermilion Bird leaderboard shone brightly one after another. This meant that the 5 saints had reached the end. Although Su Zimo had delayed him for a while, Wu Dao's main body had comprehended the 4 heavenly flames, so it was as if he was walking on flat ground. His speed was astonishing. Even so, the 5 saints were still a step ahead of him. From this, one could see just how powerful the saint bloodline was. This battle was very likely to be the most difficult battle he had ever fought since he ascended to the Great Thousand World. At this moment, a huge water screen appeared above the ancestral fire Holy Land. Like a mirror, one could see the situation on the other side of the battlefield. The situation of the elimination battle would not be displayed in front of many cultivators. However, the final battle was under the watchful eyes of everyone. Behind the 4 flaming mountains, there was a huge altar made of fiery red boulders. This was the battlefield of the final battle. After crossing 4 flaming mountains, they arrived at the Vermilion Bird altar. Only then could they be considered to have reached their destination. At that moment, there were already 5 figures standing on the Vermilion Bird altar. They were the 5 saints Zhu Liang, Fu Zongqian, Qing Yan, Xie Lin, and Blazing Fire. From the looks of it, Su Zimo might truly have been able to obtain the title of Supreme Heavenly Venerate if the saints did not enter the Heavenly Venerate Grand Meet. That's right. At the very least, based on his performance in the elimination battle, he's second only to the 5 saints. It's also because he was unlucky that the matter of Qinglian's creation was exposed and the 5 saints entered. That's why he lost his chance. Out of the 49 spirit lands of the South region, I reckon that only 3 of them are qualified to enter the final battle. That's right. There's a Supreme Heavenly Venerate who doesn't seem to be from the South region. He should be able to get a spot. As everyone discussed, Su Zimo had already crossed the Netherworld mountain range and stepped onto the Vermilion Bird altar. The discussions in the ancestral fire Holy Land gradually disappeared. Everyone looked at the Vermilion Bird altar intently. They could sense that a great battle was about to break out. There were no restrictions for the final battle. One could join forces with others or fight alone. In the worst-case scenario, it might even evolve into a situation where 9 people surrounded one person. Of course, such a situation was rare. This was also a test for the 10 heavenly venerates on the Vermilion Bird altar. Only those who were invincible among their peers were qualified to be called Supreme Heavenly Venerates. Although there were still 4 heavenly venerate experts that had yet to arrive, they could fight at any time on the Vermilion Bird altar. "You're indeed gutsy." Zhu Liang smiled faintly. "You really dared to come." The moment Su Zimo stepped onto the altar, the gazes of the 5 saints landed on him and locked onto him with unfriendly expressions. The 5 saints did not conceal the killing intent in their hearts at all. "What do you mean?" Qin Yan said coldly, "Should the 5 of us fight it out first, or should we suppress this person first?" Xie Lin smiled. "Of course we should deal with him first, lest anything else happens later." Although that was the case, the 5 saints did not attack right away. In their opinion, it was easy to suppress Su Zimo. However, they would be disadvantaged if they expended their energy to fight for the title of Supreme Heavenly Venerate. After all, their agreement was to obtain the title of Supreme Heavenly Venerate in order to obtain the title of Supreme Heavenly Venerate, Qinglian. Xie Lin chuckled. Since that's the case, let's fight it out after the 5 of us suppress him together. All right, Zhu Liang nodded. There are no restrictions on the Vermilion Bird altar. With a few words, the 5 saints came to a tacit understanding. What's the point of fighting when the 5 saints are joining forces? If I were that Su Zimo, I would use the Vermilion Bird token and leave right now. I'm afraid it's too late. The 5 saints have already locked onto him. Any strange movements from him will lead to the attacks of the 5 saints. The cultivators of the ancestral fire's sacred ground shook their heads when they saw that. That's all there is to the so-called saints. Su Zimo smiled faintly. Fu Songqian sneered. Su Zimo, you don't have to provoke us. Any one of the 5 of us can kill you. We just don't want to get entangled with you. If you want to fight, let's fight. Cut the crap. Su Zimo hollered with a burning gaze. His blood chi surged as he strode forward in huge strides, charging towards Fu Songqian, who was closest to him. Closing his sword fingers, he stabbed forward. Against the 5 saints, Su Zimo was fearless and took the initiative to attack. Fu. When Xie Lin saw that, he chuckled. Brother Fu, this man is looking down on you and is picking on you first. How dare you? Fu Songqian hollered and could not even be bothered to release his blood chi. Instead, he reached out and grabbed towards Su Zimo's sword fingers. Given his physique as a saint, he could suppress supreme heavenly venerates of the same level, let alone this puny heavenly venerate before him. When the sword fingers collided with the palm, there was a strange sound that resembled the sound of a sharp blade piercing through flesh. A flash of blood appeared. Fu Songqian could only feel a sharp pain in his palm and could not help but grunt as his expression changed. This man's sword fingers can pierce through my physique. Not only that, the immense power released from the sword fingers did not only pierce through his palm, it even surged into his arm and crippled his entire arm. Thank you to Love Wu Shi and Tiangu Hongmeng for the 30,000 and 20,000 book coins rewards. End of chapter. Chapter 3300. Swoosh. Taking a deep breath of air, Fu Songqian's blood chi surged and a boundless life force gushed out. The tides in his body surged like waves crashing against the shore in a frightening manner. Fu Songqian's body seemed to have transformed into a gigantic black hole that could devour and contain everything. A Kuan-Peng. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat when he sensed that aura. Fu Songqian's true form was a Kuan-Peng that possessed the power of Supreme Yin and Supreme Yang. The life force within his body was exuberant and the flesh on his palm that was pierced by Su Zimo grew rapidly. In the blink of an eye, his injuries were healed. Are you guys still intending to watch? Fu Songqian hollered with a grim expression. To him, that injury was merely a superficial wound and was nothing much. Furthermore, he had not used his full strength. He merely did not want Zhu Liang and the other 3 to reap the benefits. Xie Lin chuckled. Don't panic, Brother Fu. I'll help you right away. Everyone, Zhu Liang said indifferently as well, don't just watch. Let's get rid of this person as soon as possible so that we can fight to our heart's content. Alright. Qing Yan nodded. Without saying anything, Lai Hua of the Nirvana Sacred Land had already arrived behind Su Zimo. His eyes burned with flames and his blood chi surged. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and turned into the head of a ferocious beast that resembled a lion. A ferocious beast, the Taowu. There were such pure-blooded ferocious beasts in Tianhuang mainland as well. However, the Taowu before them had reverted to its ancestral bloodline and had a terrifying aura. A single bite could snap any living being at the waist. Su Zimo waved his sleeves and slapped the Taowu's head. There was a loud slap. The Swanni's head was slightly slanted from the blow, but it was not a big deal. Su Zimo seized the opportunity to dodge. Accompanied by a loud dragon roar, the blood chi within Qing Yan's body surged and the sleeves on her arms exploded into countless shreds. Her entire arm transformed into the arm of a green dragon with layers of green dragon scales that shone with a metallic luster. Her initially fair and tender palm transformed into a menacing dragon claw with sharp joints that shone with a cold glint as though it was made of steel. Qing Yan's true form was an azure dragon. One of the holy servants from the Tian Fa Holy Land was from the Azure Dragon clan. The two of them had the same cultivation realm and were of the same race, but the difference in the power of their physical bodies and bloodlines was enormous. This was the transformation brought about by bloodline atavism. The dragon claw came down on Su Zimo's head. Su Zimo raised his hand and placed it on Fu Zongqian's wrist. Suddenly, his palm turned soft and powerless. Then, Su Zimo's palm shook, and a wave of twisting and vibrating force burst out. Qin Yan felt the pain and quickly withdrew her hand. She roared at Su Zimo. There were more than 10 dragon scales on her wrist, which had been torn off by Su Zimo's palm, revealing a patch of blood-red flesh. Without giving Su Zimo any chance to catch his breath, Zhu Liang slammed his palm down. His qi and blood contained a scorching heat that could incinerate everything. Bang! Su Zimo received it with his palm. Zhu Liang bounced up and returned to midair. The flames that had just ignited on Su Zimo's palm were extinguished instantly. At the same time, Xie Lin arrived beside him with a smile and punched over casually. His attack seemed simple. Su Zimo retaliated with a punch as well. Bang! The fists collided. Both of them shuddered. Su Zimo frowned slightly. In the blink of an eye, he had already exchanged blows with the 5 sacred races. The atavism bloodlines of the 5 sacred races were extremely strong and each had their own strengths. Fu Zongqian's true form was a Kunpeng and his life force was immense. His aura was long and seemingly endless. Qin Yan's true form was an azure dragon and she was covered in dragon scales. Her physique was strong and her offense and defense were top-notch. Blazing Fire's true form was a Tao. As it advanced, it maintained the hunting habits of ferocious beasts. Its gaze shifted and locked onto Su Zimo's weaknesses. Zhu Liang's true form was a vermilion bird and his blood qi was scorching and incinerated everything. Xie Lin's true form seemed to be a qilin that Su Zimo had only read about in ancient books and had never seen before. Among the 5 sacred races, Xie Lin's physique was the toughest and indestructible. Even Su Zimo's fists felt sore from that head-on exchange. This was a situation that he had never encountered after fusing with the red karma fire lotus. The 5 sacred races' hearts skipped a beat after exchanging blows with Su Zimo. Not only did this person not show any signs of defeat against their combined attacks, he was even able to take on the 5 of them head-on. His combat strength had already exceeded their expectations. Of course, the 5 of them were still in control of the situation. The battle had just begun. Fu Zongqian gathered the power of Taiyin in his left palm and the power of Taiyang in his right palm, slapping down on Su Zimo one after another like a torrential tsunami. Qin Yan's dragon claws danced with a chilling glint. The dragon horns on her head were still gathering lightning arcs and the thunder tribulation could descend at any moment. Blazing Fire's figure was burly but he was unusually agile. He used both his claws and fangs to attack Su Zimo's weaknesses. Zhu Liang's figure remained in midair the entire time. After each attack, he would make use of the rebound force to leap up before diving down again. Each attack was fiercer than the previous. That was the innate combat technique of the vermilion bird race. Unless it was interrupted from the start, his attacks would only become more ferocious. The surface of Xie Lin's body shone with a bright yellow-golden light. Like a golden stone, it was unshakable and every move of his could release a shocking divine power. Under the combined attacks of the 5 sacred races, the pressure on Su Zimo increased exponentially. Even though his blood qi surged, he was unable to defeat any of the sacred races in a short period of time. Although it was the first time the 5 sacred races were working together, they were extremely talented in combat after cultivating to their cultivation realm. Their teamwork was flawless and they had exceptional chemistry. Moments later, Su Zimo was completely at a disadvantage and could only passively defend. Many cultivators from the ancestral Fire Holy Land were secretly shocked as they watched this battle. This Su Zimo's combat strength is so strong that he can withstand the combined attacks of the 5 sacred races. If the 5 sacred races were to fight him alone, would they really be able to suppress him? Unfortunately, this is a battle between Empyreans. There's no such thing as a one-on-one battle. No matter how strong this person is, it's difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4. As everyone discussed, a sudden change occurred on the battlefield. Su Zimo, who was being attacked from all sides, suddenly grew a head and 2 arms. He became a 2-headed, 4-armed monster. This is 3 heads and 6 arms? That's not right. 3 heads and 6 arms is just a divine ability. Unless one is born with 3 heads and 6 arms like the Azura clan, or cultivates a great Tao like 3 heads and 6 arms, it's impossible for them to release such a technique. Moreover, this isn't a 3-headed, 6-armed monster. It's only a 2-headed, 4-armed monster. As everyone saw this, their faces were filled with bewilderment. The supreme supernatural power that Su Zimo had originally comprehended was the 4-headed, 8-armed monster. However, after cultivating to the Tao-comprehending realm, the power of the 4-headed, 8-armed monster couldn't reach the level of Tao. Thus, it couldn't be condensed. But his own situation was different from others. His body was formed from the fusion of the Qinglian of good fortune and the red karmic fire lotus. To be more precise, his body was equivalent to 2 lotuses. Thus, he was able to release a 2-headed, 4-armed monster. End of chapter. Chapter 3301. Not only that, Su Zimo even summoned the Sanyu Rui scepter and Tai horsetail whisk. Holding them in his hands, the 9 heavens living earth circled around him to protect his flaws. He was able to take on the 5 sacred races head-on with his 2 heads and 4-arm state. Although blazing fire had the help of his fire eye to detect his opponent's flaws, Su Zimo could always avoid his vitals with his spirit perception each time he attacked and could only hold him back. But now, with the protection of the 9 heavens living earth and his spirit perception, Su Zimo's aura surged and he counterattacked. Bang, bang, bang. Instantly, blood chi rumbled on the battlefield as light shone in all directions and a deafening explosion could be heard. Melee combat as such was the most dangerous. The difference of a single move could determine life and death. The fact that Su Zimo was able to remain undefeated against the combined attacks of the 5 sacred races was proof that he had unleashed his combat techniques to their limits. If not for the fact that he had fought his way through the dimensional realms in Tianhuang mainland and cultivated to this day, he would definitely not have been able to defend against the attacks of the 5 sacred races. When the 5 sacred races saw that Su Zimo's counterattack was showing signs of turning the tides, they summoned their divine weapons one after another as well. Fu Songtian opened his mouth and spat out a pair of Yin Yang Ziwu axes. That was a unique weapon that was unique to the Kunpeng race. One was Yin and one was Yang, one was male and female. Only the Kunpeng race could unleash the full power of that divine weapon. Clang. Fu Songtian gripped the Yin Yang Ziwu axes with both hands and clashed against each other, letting out a crisp sound that tugged at one's heartstrings. In his hands, the Yin Yang Ziwu axes seemed to have transformed into a deep-sea Kuan or a gigantic ping that spread its wings, blanketing the skies with a majestic aura. Roar! A dragon's roar reverberated through the world. A long sword that shone with a chilling green glow appeared in front of Qin Yan. The sword was 4 feet long and was covered in a layer of green dragon scales. Sword chi surged into the firmaments and the phantom of a green dragon appeared in midair, soaring through the clouds and overturning the seas. Swoosh! A streak of fire tore through the skies. As Zhu Liang swooped down to attack, a crimson spear fell from the sky. The spear burned with flames that were bright red and sparkling. More than 10 vermilion birds circled the flames, chirping endlessly. The divine weapon of the vermilion bird tribe, the vermilion bird spear. A golden light descended from the sky and smashed down. A golden weapon appeared in Xielin's hand. It looked like a saber, but it did not have a sharp edge. It was like a blunt ruler that was extremely heavy and indestructible. The Qilin clan's divine weapon, the Qilin ruler. Blazing fire didn't bring out any weapons. To the sacred clansmen of the void sacred land, every part of their body and every strand of their bloodline was born for slaughter. Every part of their body could be used as a weapon of slaughter. He was a born killer. With divine weapons in hand, the attacks of the 5 sacred clans became even more ferocious. The situation on the battlefield was becoming more and more dangerous. The slightest carelessness would cause blood to splatter on the spot. At this moment, the last 4 Supreme Empyreans in the top 10 of the Vermilion Bird list also arrived at the Vermilion Bird sacrificial altar one after another. The 7th was Fan Yun from the land of Fierce Spirit, one of the 49 spiritual lands in the southern region. Back then, those from the land of Fierce Spirits had met Su Zimo outside the ancestral fire's sacred land. Among the group of people, only Fan Yun could see that Su Zimo was not simple. However, he still jumped in fright when he saw this scene. If it were him, he probably wouldn't have been able to last a single breath against the encirclement of 5 sacred clans. On the other hand, this person was fighting with the 5 sacred clans until the sky darkened and the earth darkened. The 8th was Pangjian from the land of Smoke, one of the 49 spiritual lands. The 9th was Jiu Ran from the land of Spirit Burning, one of the 49 spiritual lands. The 10th didn't look like someone from the southern region. She was a young girl with pigtails, an oval-shaped face, and bright, spirited eyes. The other 3 were shocked when they saw the scene on the Vermilion Bird's sacrificial altar, but they also secretly rejoiced. They even waited for the final outcome of the battle with the mentality of watching a good show. Only this girl blinked her large, watery eyes, watching the battle not far away. She looked a little worried and anxious. A moment later, she suddenly raised her voice. As members of the sacred clan, 5 of you are bullying one person. Don't you feel ashamed? The girl's voice was as clear and pleasant as a silver bell. The 5 sacred clans were expressionless and unmoved. At their cultivation realm, their Tao hearts were firm and unshakable. How could they be shaken just because of a few words? However, Su Zimo, who was in the middle of the encirclement, felt his heart skip a beat. That voice belonged to the person who sent him a voice transmission earlier on to inform him of Dai Yu's whereabouts. The slight fluctuation in Su Zimo's heart was instantly sensed by the 5 sacred clans. This person is truly arrogant. He dares to be distracted even against our combined forces. There was no way the 5 sacred clans would miss such an opportunity, and their attacks rained down like a torrential storm. Initially, Su Zimo was still able to contend against the 5 sacred clans. However, the moment he revealed a single flaw, the situation became precarious in the blink of an eye. Su Zimo's ribs were scratched by the blazing flames, and a few claw marks appeared that turned red on the spot. Fu Tungkin's yin-yang meridian axe sliced across Su Zimo's throat by a hair's breadth, and a faint trace of blood appeared at his throat. It was just a few inches away from chopping off Su Zimo's head. Exclamation point! The dragon scale sword sliced his chest. The Vermilion Bird's spear pierced his shoulder. The Qilin ruler struck Su Zimo's back, causing him to stagger and spit out blood. In the blink of an eye, there were multiple wounds on Su Zimo's body, and his green robes were stained with blood. When the young girl saw that, her face turned pale. She also realized that not only did her words fail to help Su Zimo, she even caused him to be severely injured and nearly caused a huge disaster. Aye. Don't panic. I'll help you. The young girl's eyes reddened and she cried out anxiously. Her words were incoherent as she leaped and pulled out a clumsy axe from somewhere, running towards the battlefield. That axe looked like a wooden axe of the mortal world, and it did not match the young girl's figure at all. The young girl's slightly skinny hands dragged the wooden axe with an aggrieved and frustrated expression as she charged into the battlefield while crying. Ordinary cultivators, even the supreme heavenly venerates of the 49 spirit lands, would not dare to fight against the saints. Even against holy servants, they would not dare to provoke them. However, this young girl did not have any intention of retreating. Swoosh! The young girl propped up a world and her blood chi surged. Suddenly, that clumsy-looking axe turned into nothing in her hands. Fu! Pangjian chuckled and a mocking expression flashed through her beautiful face. To think that she's a human. Everyone recognized her race right away when she released her blood chi. Fan Yun said in a deep voice, "The fact that a human can enter the top 10 of the Vermilion Bird ranking is not to be underestimated. They must have some tricks up their sleeves." Jiu Ran shrugged slightly and said disapprovingly, Even so, a human isn't qualified to challenge a saint. Boom. As everyone discussed, the young girl had already raised her axe and chopped down at Xie Lin's head. Xie Lin did not even look and maintained his offense against Su Zimo. He merely punched in reverse towards the young girl's axe. Clang. When the young girl's axe struck Xie Lin's fist, an ear-piercing sound of metal clashing could be heard, as though she had struck a mountain peak. The young girl shuddered and was sent flying uncontrollably. She spat out a mouthful of blood, but her hands were still gripping her axe tightly. Xie Lin's expression changed as well as he looked at his fist in disbelief. Shockingly, a wound had appeared on his fist, and golden blood was flowing out from it. He was injured. Chapter 3302. The fact that Xie Lin was injured did not mean that the girl had the ability to fight against him. After all, Xie Lin was barehanded and could not support a world while the girl was attacking with all her might. However, the fact that she could break through his defense and injure his sacred race body surprised Xie Lin greatly. The power of the girl's axe earlier on was not strong. However, when the axe landed on his fist, there were countless tiny vibrations in the blink of an eye. It was equivalent to multiple attacks stacked together, and only then did he manage to injure him. "You ant, you're truly courting death." Xie Lin smiled faintly and shook his palm. The injury on his fist was healing rapidly as he said slowly, "Since that's the case, I'll grant you your wish first." With that said, Xie Lin wanted to withdraw from the battlefield and kill the girl first. Although Su Zimo was injured on the battlefield, he was relieved when he saw that. The girl's words and actions earlier on allowed him to confirm one thing. The girl did not have any enmity towards him and even wanted to help him. That also meant that the girl would not lie to him about Dai Yu. Dai Yu knew this girl. It was also because of her relationship with Dai Yu that the girl stood out to help. Dai Yu was at Xianmi Mountain. At the thought of that, a huge rock in his heart was finally lifted. To him, that was the best news since he ascended to the vast thousand world. Seeing that Xie Lin was about to attack the girl, Su Zimo did not want her to be in danger and could not help but roar. His aura surged as he said loudly, "Just watch from the side and watch how I take down all 5 of them." Arrogant. Fu Songtian sneered when he heard that. Many cultivators from the ancestral fire sacred ground who were watching the battle felt that those words were overly arrogant and condescending. He claimed that he wanted to take down the 5 sacred races single-handedly. What did he take the sacred race for? Although the girl was worried, she did not attack rashly when she heard that. Instead, she gripped her axe tightly with both hands and observed the situation with a nervous expression. Swoosh! Suddenly, a beam of fire flew out from the glabella of Su Zimo's second head and transformed into a burning lotus flower in midair that enveloped Xie Lin. It was the karmic fire lotus platform. Xie Lin's expression changed. He waved the Qilin ruler and smashed it at the karmic fire lotus platform, causing a loud bang. The 2 divine weapons faced each other in midair, neither giving way to the other. Suddenly, the karmic fire lotus platform bloomed and countless petals descended, forming a huge prison that completely enveloped Xie Lin's body. Numerous lotus holes spewed out streaks of fiery light, shooting towards Xie Lin's body. Ding ding dang dang. The lotus seeds of karmic fire hit Xie Lin's body and produced a series of metallic clangs before they were all bounced off. They were unable to break through Xie Lin's physical defenses. However, the true power of the karmic fire lotus throne did not lie in the lotus seed, but in the karmic fire. The raging karmic fire continued to burn Xie Lin's body. His qi and blood could not suppress it. The golden barrier around Xie Lin's body began to show signs of melting. Even with the Qilin ruler in his hand, he was unable to break free from the karmic fire lotus platform. Brother Xie, be careful. This is the karmic fire lotus platform. As a member of the sacred race from the ancestral fire sacred ground, Zhu Liang recognized the origin of the lotus platform quickly and could not help but be secretly delighted. This meant that if he killed Su Zimo, he would obtain the creation Qinglian and the karmic fire lotus throne. After trapping Xie Lin with the karmic fire lotus platform, Su Zimo relied on his 2 heads and 4 arms, the primordial unity horsetail whisk, 3 treasure jade rui and 9 heavens living soil to fight against the 4 sacred race clans and gradually turn the tables. Do the 4 of you still want to hold back? Xie Lin's voice sounded from the karmic fire lotus platform with a hint of coldness. He was trapped within and burned continuously. Coupled with the impact of the karmic fire lotus seeds, he was truly enraged. Up till this point of the battle, the 5 sacred race clans had been holding back. To them, they had never regarded Su Zimo as an opponent. Instead, they wanted to preserve their strength as much as possible so that they could obtain the title of Supreme Heavenly Venerate among the 5 of them after killing Su Zimo. However, as the battle progressed, Su Zimo became fiercer and fiercer. The 5 sacred race clans realized that they could not suppress this person even after joining forces. Kill! Fu Songtian continuously activated his bloodline and gathered the power of the sun and moon. The gigantic Kuan and rock in the air almost materialized and their attacks became even more ferocious. Su Zimo countered every move. His aura changed and his left eye turned pitch black while his right eye turned white. The illumination and dark fluorescent divine stone in his eyes were already restless. 2 divine lights, one black and one white, shot out and landed on the gigantic Kuan and rock. The gigantic beasts formed by the power of the sun and moon melted rapidly. Not only that, the power of the sun and moon from the 2 gigantic beasts was also devoured and absorbed by the illumination and dark fluorescent divine stone in Su Zimo's eyes. What? Fu Songtian's expression changed drastically. In Su Zimo's eyes, he could sense an aura that made his heart palpitate. How was that possible? His bloodline had reverted to its ancestral state. What was it that made him feel that way? Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly. Using Tai as the brush and Yin Yang as the ink, he rapidly wrote 12 runes in midair and hollered, 6 Ding and 6 Jia of the book, all gods and ghosts shall disperse. The 12 heavenly gods materialized rapidly and surrounded the 4 sacred beast tribes. Although the 12 heavenly gods did not have blood chi and essence spirits, they were comparable to Su Zimo's essence spirit realm and could release the combat strength of a supreme heavenly venerable in melee combat. Coupled with the fact that the 12 heavenly deities were well coordinated and knew a joint attack technique, Su Zimo was able to restrain them head-on and instantly turn the tables, causing the 4 sacred clans to be flustered and forced to retreat. Boom! Suddenly, a deafening sound echoed from the battlefield. A divine beast with a golden glow broke through the cage of the fire lotus platform and charged out. It roared into the skies and emitted a terrifying aura. Xie Lin channeled his bloodline to the maximum and the bloodline phenomenon merged into his body as well, transforming into his true form, the Golden Qilin. The Golden Qilin was naturally close to the Great Tao of Metal. Not only was it much easier to cultivate this Great Tao, it could also unleash the power of the Great Tao of Metal to the maximum. Furthermore, the physique of the Golden Qilin was one of the top existences of the Qilin race. Everyone, don't hold back anymore. Attack with all your might and kill this man. Xie Lin spoke in the human language with a cold tone. All right. Fu Songtian hollered as well, let's show this man the true strength of our sacred beast tribe. Sush. Fu Songtian transformed into his true form as well. His massive body covered the skies and the 2 forms of the Kun Peng appeared on his body. Screech! The cry of a phoenix sounded and Zhu Liang transformed into his true form of the vermilion bird. Although his body looked small and skinny, it contained an extremely terrifying power. Roar! Similarly, Qin Yen transformed into her azure dragon form and coiled above the vermilion bird altar while emitting a boundless might. She looked down at Su Zimo with an indifferent gaze, as though she was looking at an ant. Roar! Blazing flames transformed into the true form of the fiery-eyed Swanee as well. It stepped on flames with a murderous gaze. Even the cultivators of the ancestral fire sacred land who were watching through the water screen in midair shuddered, let alone Su Zimo and the others who were on the vermilion bird altar. This was a suppression that came from the depths of his bloodline and a fear that came from the depths of his memories. It was uncontrollable. Chapter 3303. The bloodlines of the 5 sacred races could suppress others. However, they could not suppress Su Zimo, who had fused with the creation realms Qinglian and the red karmic fire lotus. Surrounded by the 5 sacred races, Su Zimo stood tall with his head held high. His blood qi surged and the wounds on his body healed rapidly. Upon seeing the 5 sacred races reveal their trump cards, Su Zimo was prepared to attack with all his might as well. Initially, he wanted to hold back. It might not be a big deal if he killed 2 holy servants. However, if he killed the sacred races, he would definitely become enemies with the sacred grounds. The sacred grounds had dominated the vast thousand world for many years and would definitely not let this matter rest. Initially, Su Zimo did not want to be targeted by the experts of the sacred grounds so quickly. However, if he held back now, his life would be in danger. If you guys leave now, you might still have a chance to live. Su Zimo swept his gaze across the 5 sacred races and said slowly, "If you guys fight later on, even the vermilion bird token won't be able to save you guys." His words were truly meant to persuade the 5 sacred clans to back off. However, to Fu Tsongtian and the other 4, that was an insult to them. Xie Lin could not help but laugh. To think that as heavenly venerables of the sacred races, we would be looked down upon by the heavenly venerables of the long-declined heavenly venerables of the plant race. Qin Yan said, "Since he's so arrogant, let's show him the true strength of the sacred races." The 5 sacred races hollered and propped up a world one after another, revealing great Tao phenomenons that enveloped Su Zimo. The 6 Ding gods did not have essence spirits of flesh and blood, nor did they have a world to protect them. Against the suppression of a world and a great Tao phenomenon, they could not withstand it and dissipated. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness moved and a chaos world appeared behind him. Within that world, 2 lotus flowers, one green and one red, took root in the chaos and swayed with light, resisting the great Tao phenomenons of the 5 sacred races. The 5 worlds clashed with the chaos world, trying to destroy it. To the 5 sacred races, Su Zimo was only at the lesser mastery of the Tao enlightenment realm after all. The traces of the great Tao had yet to cover a world and he could not withstand their attacks. In reality, that was the case. In the chaos world, the traces of the great Tao had only just begun to spread. However, in Su Zimo's chaotic world, there was the support of Qinglian and the red lotus of hellfire, which made the chaotic world extremely stable. Even under the suppression of the great Tao phenomena of the 5 worlds, the primal chaos world was still able to resist and remain unmoved. It would be difficult to determine a winner in a short period of time in the world war. The 5 saint clans rushed forwards once more. After transforming into their true forms, the 5 saint clans were able to display their bloodline strength to the limit. The 5 saint clans were prepared to kill Su Zimo in close combat. Just as the 5 of them were about to reach him, Su Zimo circulated his qi and blood to the maximum. His qi and blood condensed, and 2 lotus flowers suddenly rose behind him. Bloodline phenomenon. The 2 lotuses soared into the sky, rising against the momentum, as if they were about to break through the heavens and earth. Su Zimo's battle prowess was also raised to the extreme. At the same time, 2 sword lights broke through the chaos and landed in Su Zimo's hands. The Avicii and Netherworld swords were born. Even though Su Zimo released his bloodline phenomenon, the 5 saint clans did not feel much of a threat and were not surprised. However, the moment the Avicii and Netherworld swords were born, the 5 saint clans felt a bone-chilling intent. It was an extremely dangerous aura. Fight! A deafening dragon roar burst forth from the depths of Su Zimo's throat. The next moment, the creation and karmic hellfire lotus flowers revolved as Su Zimo charged into the crowd with the Avicii and Netherworld swords in his hands. His first target was Fu Tsongtian of Yin Yang's sacred ground. The combat strength of the 5 saint clans was similar and they were all top experts of the Tao comprehending realm. However, to Su Zimo, Fu Tsongtian was the weakness of the 5 of them. He had the illumination and nether fluorescent divine stone. In the earlier exchange of blows, the 2 god stones had obviously suppressed Fu Tsongtian's bloodline by a little. Su Zimo channeled his spirit consciousness and released his visual technique. His left eye was pitch black while his right eye was pure white. The illumination and nether fluorescent spirit consciousnesses released a black and white divine light that intertwined in midair to form a taiji diagram that crushed down on Fu Zongtian. Fu Zongtian's expression changed starkly. Earlier on, he had sensed that there was something else in Su Zimo's eyes. The power of sun and yin that was released was even purer and more condensed than what he could control. Fu Zongtian's massive body swayed and slammed against the incoming taiji diagram. Although the taiji diagram did not seem huge, the yin and yang fishes within chased after each other and spun slowly. There was yin within yin and yang within yin as though it could contain everything. The two of them collided silently. As for Fu Zongtian's massive body, it was being devoured bit by the taiji diagram, and the power of sun and yin within his body was being extracted as well. Sensing that something was amiss, Fu Zongtian hurriedly waved his yin-yang ziwu axe and they clashed against each other, creating a taiji diagram as well. When the two taiji diagrams collided, there was a deafening explosion this time round. Right at this moment, a blood-red sword light flashed past. Su Zimo had made his move. The timing was perfect. It was the moment when Fu Zongtian was controlling his yin-yang ziwu axe to collide with the taiji diagram, and he had no time to care about anything else. Facing Su Zimo's sword, Fu Zongtian only gave a cold laugh. His body was massive and his vitality was as vast as the starry sky. The netherworld sword was not even as long as a strand of his beard. Even if this sword landed on his body, it would not be able to hurt his foundation at all. In many battles, the Kuan-Peng race would transform into their true form and could even ignore the opponent's attack and launch a counterattack directly. When both sides exploded with the same destructive power, it would not be a threat to the Kuan-Peng race if it landed on them. However, the opponent would not be able to withstand the damage and would die on the spot. With a massive body and boundless vitality, this was the strength of the Kuan-Peng race. However, at certain times, this was also their weakness. Having a massive body meant that they were relatively clumsy. Coupled with the fact that Su Zimo's timing was perfect, Fu Zongtian could not avoid Su Zimo's sword at all. So, the netherworld sword slashed out a large wound on Fu Zongtian's body. Of course, this large wound was only for Su Zimo. To Fu Zongtian's massive Kuan-Peng body, this wound was almost negligible. After slashing out, Su Zimo did not take another look at Fu Zongtian. Instead, he controlled the Avicii sword and slashed towards Xie Lin. Xie Lin had already seen how terrifying the Avicii and netherworld swords were and naturally would not take the risk. Instead, he waved the Qilin ruler and smashed it towards the Avicii sword. Clang! The Trigem Jade Rui fell from the sky and smashed onto the Qilin ruler, causing the Qilin ruler to deviate slightly, causing it to brush past the Avicii sword. The Avicii sword did not stop and continued to slash towards him, getting closer and closer. Xie Lin frowned and wanted to retreat. At this moment, Fu Zongtian's massive body fell onto the vermilion bird altar with a loud bang. The earth shook and dust flew up. Fu Zongtian's eyes widened and dimmed. His primordial spirit was destroyed and he was dead. One of the sacred race, Fu Zongtian, had fallen. The vitality of the Kuan-Peng race was so strong that even after they died, the vitality in their bodies did not dissipate completely. This scene caused an uproar both inside and outside the battlefield. Chapter 3304. Ancestral Fire's Sacred Ground. Uncle Feng was also paying attention to the final battle of the Heavenly Venerate meet. When he saw Fu Zongtian fall under Su Zimo's sword, he could not help but frown. A sacred race clansman had died. Although Fu Zongtian was only at the Tao comprehending realm, there were not many sacred race clansmen in the various sacred grounds and they were extremely rare. After all, the conditions to become a sacred race clansman were too harsh and one had to have atavistic bloodline to qualify. Any sacred race clansman was the most precious talent to the various sacred grounds. The death of a Tao Venerate might not cause much of a reaction from the sacred grounds. However, if a sacred race clansman died, the sacred grounds would definitely not let the matter rest. Uncle Feng truly did not expect that Su Zimo, who was at the initial Tao comprehending realm, would be able to kill a sacred race clansman despite being surrounded by 5 sacred races. After this battle, invite him to join the ancestral fire's sacred ground. Suddenly, a voice rang out in Uncle Feng's mind. In an instant, Uncle Feng guessed the intention of the person who spoke. If this lad joined the ancestral fire's sacred ground, he would be protected by his master and the other sacred grounds would naturally not punish him. After all, this was a battle between heavenly venerates of the same cultivation realm. Fu Songtian could only blame himself for being inferior. Uncle Feng sent a voice transmission. This person has a special identity. If we take him in, I'm afraid he will bring greater trouble to our master. It will be difficult to explain to the ancestral fire's sacred ground. You don't have to worry about that. The voice sounded once more and it was unquestionable. His master was determined to protect him. Uncle Feng sighed internally and pondered for a moment before asking again, I've interacted with this person and he has his own opinions. He might not be willing to join the ancestral fire's sacred ground. What if he's unwilling? The voice was silent for a moment before replying indifferently, let him be then. Suddenly, Uncle Feng sensed something and hurriedly turned to the vermilion bird altar. His expression changed and his lips trembled as he muttered, another one has died, what? On the vermilion bird altar, when the remaining 4 sacred tribes saw Fu Zongqian's death, their faces changed in shock. As a member of the Kunping race, Fu Zongqian's bloodline atavistic and his vitality was extremely strong. Even if they were to fight him, they would not be able to kill him with a single strike. Earlier on, Fu Zongqian had only suffered a slight injury from the sword and he had died. This scene truly frightened the 4 sacred beast clans. It was that sword. The eyes of the 4 sacred clans fell onto Netherworld's sword and a deep dread flashed across their eyes. Initially, Xie Lin could have avoided the sharpness of the Avicii sword, but because of Fu Zongqian's death, he was slightly distracted and his movements were slightly slower. The tiny horsetail whisk attacked silently. The 3,000 whisk strands seemed to have a mind of their own as they wrapped around Xie Lin's waist and bound his limbs. By the time Xie Lin reacted, he found that he could no longer move. Boom! Xie Lin was greatly alarmed. He unleashed all his strength to break free from the Tai horsetail whisk. But with this delay, the Avicii sword had already chopped down. Xie Lin only had time to tilt his head to avoid being hit on his vital organs. He could only hope that his physical body could withstand the sharpness of the Avicii sword. Clang! The Avicii sword landed on Xie Lin's shoulder, causing sparks to fly. Puchi! With just a slight obstruction, the Avicii sword broke through Xie Lin's golden body. Taking advantage of the momentum, it cut a small part of his body into 2. Blood gushed out, dyeing the vermilion bird altar red. If it was the Netherworld sword, it was still unknown if it could break through Xie Lin's golden body. But the sharpness of the Avicii sword was the most important. Since Su Zimo had already decided to go on a killing spree, with 2 swords in hand, he naturally had to unleash the power of the Avicii and Netherworld swords to the maximum. The murderous aura of the Netherworld sword ignored the huge vitality in Fu Zongqian's body and directly destroyed his primordial spirit. The sharpness of the Avicii sword ignored the defense of Xie Lin's golden body and cut it into 2. The Avicii sword's body was filled with prison chi. It directly dragged Xie Lin's primordial spirit into the Avicii hell and completely suppressed it. Xie Lin's primordial spirit did not hold on for long and died. The 5 sacred clans had lost another person. This killing spree took a long time to describe, but in fact, life and death were decided in a flash. Su Zimo had successively killed Fu Zongqian and Xie Lin. He had already unleashed all his skills and could no longer defend against the attacks of the other 3 sacred clans. Only the 9 heaven living soil was left. It transformed into yellow sand to protect his body. Puchi! Lai Ho stepped forward and bit off one of Su Zimo's heads. Qing Yan's dragon scale sword tore through the void and cut off Su Zimo's arms. As for Zhu Liang's vermilion bird spear, it pierced through Su Zimo's chest and sent him flying into the air before crashing heavily onto the ground. Many cultivators of the ancestral fire's sacred ground had already forgotten to breathe when they saw this. It was too tragic. Two sacred clans had fallen and Su Zimo's two-headed and four-armed state was broken as well. There was a bloody hole the size of a bowl in his chest. It was a ghastly sight. After suffering such serious injuries, this person's blood chi has declined. I'm afraid he won't be able to fight anymore. Even so, it's enough for him to be proud of himself for killing two sacred clans. What kind of combat strength is that? Why hasn't he used the vermilion bird token to escape from the battlefield? Didn't you see? When Lai Hu got close to him, he snatched the vermilion bird token from his waist and cut off his escape route. On the vermilion bird altar, Zhu Liang, Qing Yan and Lai Hu had already calmed down from their shock and regained their composure swiftly. To them, the death of Fu Songtian and Xie Lin might not be a bad thing. At the very least, they would have two less of their greatest competitors from now on. Their chances of obtaining the creation Qinglian and the red karmic fire lotus would be greater. The young girl watching at the side was pale and was hesitating if she should head forward. However, Su Zimo had already stood up from the vermilion bird altar. His body was stained with blood and his black hair danced wildly. His eyes were even deeper and his battle intent was not diminished. The bloody hole in his chest was regenerating rapidly and his flesh was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Although his blood chi had weakened, he was far from losing his combat strength. The life force of the creation Qinglian was even stronger than the Kuan Ping with its ancestral bloodline. After fusing with the red karmic fire lotus, his body became even stronger. Zhu Liang and the other two had grim expressions. The three of them realized that they could not give Su Zimo any chance to catch his breath. The regeneration of this person's body was far beyond their imagination. Sush. The three sacred clans released an Essence Spirit Dao seal at the same time. Su Zimo did not retaliate. The battle earlier on had taken a huge toll on his Essence Spirit as well. His Essence Spirit sat on the Creation Lotus platform in his consciousness. The petals bloomed and protected his Essence Spirit within as streams of green light spewed out from the lotus hole. Three Essence Spirit Dao seals tore through his consciousness and transformed into a vermilion bird, an azure dragon and a Taowu that charged towards his Essence Spirit. The fight between the Essence Spirits was silent. The demon beasts transformed from the three Essence Spirit Dao seals charged at the barrier formed by the Creation Lotus platform repeatedly. However, they could not break through for a long time. At the same time, the three sacred clans attacked once more. Buzz. Su Zimo's hands trembled and the Avicii and Netherworld swords vibrated gently, letting out a shuddering sword hum. The three sacred clans had just witnessed the might of the Avicii and Netherworld swords and froze with wary expressions. Right then, Su Zimo wielded both swords and attacked once more. Chapter 3305. Cling, cling, cling. The Infinite Pain, Netherworld Dual Swords, Dragon Scale Sword and Vermilion Bird Spear let out a series of crisp sounds. Initially, the five sacred races could not suppress Su Zimo even when they were attacking him together. But now, there were only three sacred races left. Although Su Zimo was already injured, he had the complete upper hand with the terrifying Infinite Pain and Netherworld Dual Swords and his powerful blood chi. Zhu Liang and Qing Yan became cautious in their attacks. Lai Hu's attacks were even more sluggish and fearful. His killing techniques were all based on his claws and fangs. Any weapon was a burden to him. However, the moment he closed in, he would have to face the sharpness of the Infinite Pain and Netherworld Dual Swords. He could still defend against the Netherworld Dual Swords with his sharp claws. However, in the previous attack, he was slightly slow in retracting his claws and they were sliced cleanly by the Infinite Pain Dual Swords. Thankfully, there were no bloodline wounds on his claws and the power of the Infinite Pain Dual Swords could not be released. Even so, Lai Hu broke out in cold sweat from fright. Although it seemed like the three sacred races were attacking Su Zimo, in reality, Su Zimo was suppressing the three sacred races. Sword lights shone and swept through the voids. Su Zimo was gradually drawing the three sacred races into his sword force. The impact of the deaths of Fu Songtian and Xie Lin was not limited to that. The worlds of the three sacred races were gradually unable to suppress Su Zimo's chaos world. Su Zimo's blood chi intensified and the auras of the creation and karmic fire lotus flowers behind him surged. One of them shone with a green light while the other blazed with karmic fire. The chaos world was gradually exerting its might and the gray mist continued to spread in an attempt to devour the worlds of the three sacred races. Zhu Liang and the other two were secretly alarmed. If this continued, the three of them might even die here, let alone suppress Su Zimo. The three of them wanted to retreat and their courage weakened. Naturally, their attacks weakened as well. In a fight between experts, the slightest mistake could be fatal. Two divine lights burst forth from Su Zimo's eyes as he howled. Ignoring the fangs and claws of Lai Hua behind him, he leaped and charged towards Zhu Liang and Qin Yan. This time, he was completely putting his life on the line. Su Zimo could make use of this opportunity to kill Zhu Liang and Qin Yan. However, he had no time to Lai Hua. Lai Hua was exposed, his vitals exposed. He could be killed on the spot. His 2 heads and 4 arms were broken. This time round, he did not lose a second. As long as Hua grasping the opportunity, there was a chance he was Hua. Instantly, the 3 clans they were CLO flames of the god of. If Zhu Liang and Qin Yan chose to fight to the death with Su Zimo, it was very likely that they would die on the spot and Lai Hua would become the biggest winner. Zhu Liang and Qin Yan were naturally unwilling to see such an outcome. As for Lai Hua, he was way too wary of Su Zimo's Avicii and Netherworld swords. He was afraid that this was Su Zimo's bait and that he would fall into a trap if he closed in. The battle was intense and the situation was complicated. Both parties were mentally playing a game. The moment Zhu Liang and Qin Yan revealed an opening, Su Zimo arrived before them with 2 swords in hand. There was no way to avoid and they could only try their best to deal with him. Su Zimo ignored Lai Hua behind him and unleashed the might of the Avicii and Netherworld swords to their limits. Sword chi surged and poured down on the 2 of them. While Lai Hua hesitated, Zhu Liang and Qin Yan were already in danger. "What are you waiting for?" Zhu Liang hollered. Lai Hua knew that if Zhu Liang and Qin Yan were to die and he was the only one left, he would definitely not be a match for Su Zimo. Lai Hua's gaze turned cold and his figure flashed. Like a ghost, he silently arrived behind Su Zimo and opened his mouth, biting down on Su Zimo's head. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's attack on Zhu Liang and Qin Yan came to an abrupt stop. Before he could turn around, the Avicii and Netherworld swords had already stabbed towards him. Lai Hua's expression changed. Not good. Lai Hua's heart skipped a beat. This person's target is still me. Both sides were extremely close and it was already too late for Lai Hua to retreat. He only had time to bite the Netherworld sword, but his fangs were cut off by the Avicii sword. The 2 swords intersected and cut off Lai Hua's head. Blood gushed out like a fountain. It was a clean cut. Lai Hua was dead. Earlier on, Zhu Liang and Qin Yan were forced to retreat by Su Zimo's attacks. Even if Su Zimo stopped and turned to deal with Lai Hua, the 2 of them did not have time to counterattack. By the time the 2 of them reacted, Lai Hua's head had already been separated from his body and he was dead. In the blink of an eye, there were only 2 sacred clans left on the Vermilion Bird altar. This battle could be said to be filled with danger. Su Zimo killed Lai Hua with his heavily injured body. Other than relying on his own methods, he also used the psychological game of both sides. If the 3 sacred clans were fearless and selfless, even if Su Zimo could kill one of them, his own blood would be spilled on the spot. The combat strength of the sacred clans was indeed terrifying. Up until now, no one had been able to force Su Zimo to this extent for a long time. After killing Lai Hua, Su Zimo only relied on the barbed Avicii and Netherworld swords and did not even turn around to look. His gaze was like a torch that was still locked onto Zhu Liang and Qin Yan. After retracting his swords, Su Zimo did not stop and continued to charge towards the 2 of them with both swords in his hands. This time round, there were only 2 sacred clans left and the pressure on Su Zimo decreased significantly. As for Zhu Liang and Qin Yan, they could not help but feel fear when they saw Fu Songqian, Xie Lin and Lai Hua fall one after another. No matter how strong their Tao hearts were, they could not help but feel fear. Under Su Zimo's powerful attacks, the two of them did not even have the chance to use their vermilion bird tokens. Rumble. There were only 2 worlds left and they could no longer suppress the Chaos World. The Chaos World expanded and wanted to engulf Zhu Liang and Qin Yan's worlds. Once the Chaos World enveloped them, the 2 remaining sacred clans would have to die here. Right then, Zhu Liang realized that there seemed to be a flaw in Su Zimo's sword force that was attacking him, giving him a chance to catch his breath. This was a rare opportunity. It was very likely to be his only chance to escape. Run! Without hesitation, Zhu Liang retreated from the battlefield and summoned his vermilion bird token. In a flash, he disappeared from the vermilion bird altar. Zhu Liang, Qin Yan was enraged. However, her voice was completely drowned by the sounds of swords on the battlefield. The Netherworld sword collided with the dragon scale sword. With a turn of the blade, the Netherworld sword was pushed aside, revealing an opening. The infinite pain sword stabbed out. Shing! The blade sliced through Qin Yan's dragon body. Even the dragon scales on her body could not defend against the sharpness of the infinite pain sword, and a bloody wound appeared. The infinite pain hell erupted and dragged Qin Yan's essence spirit into it instantly. Zhu Liang and Qin Yan joined forces, but they could not defend against Su Zimo's dual sword attacks. Qin Yan was the only one left. Under the encirclement of the infinite pain and netherworld swords, she was killed on the spot within a few breaths. The entire ancestral fire holy land was silent. Not a single sound could be heard. On the vermilion bird altar, the green-robed cultivator who was covered in blood wielded his sword with both hands and stood proudly with a cold gaze. The saint blood on his sword dripped slowly, and the corpses of the 4 sacred clans lay in a pool of blood beneath his feet. All the cultivators widened their mouths and looked at the figure on the vermilion bird altar with widened eyes. Their expressions were horrified and their hearts were filled with endless shock. End of chapter. Chapter 3306. The final battle between the Heavenly Venerables had ended with the death of 4 sacred clans and the survival of 1 sacred clan member. This was beyond everyone's expectations. For countless years, the sacred clan had been an invincible existence in the hearts of all living beings. In fact, that was exactly the case. For so many years, no living being of the same level could challenge the sacred clan. Only the sacred clan could defeat the other sacred clan members. Speaking of which, Su Zimo has the creation Qinglian bloodline, so he should be considered a sacred clan member, right? Even so, I've never heard of any sacred clan member who is strong enough to take on 5 people at once. It's not just 1 against 5, but also under the premise that he's 2 small realms above him. Think about it. If this person cultivates to the perfected Tao comprehending realm and becomes a supreme celestial venerate, suppressing the 5 sacred clans would be a piece of cake. If the sacred clan of the floral clan was so powerful, the chaos sacred land wouldn't have been destroyed back then. After a long silence, the ancestral fire's sacred land erupted into a wave of voices. Speaking of which, without the protection of the chaos sacred land, this person killed 4 sacred clans. The 4 sacred lands won't let him go easily. That's true. If the Tao venerables of the 4 sacred lands pursue this matter, this person will only have one ending no matter how great his potential is. Only one of the 5 sacred clans escaped. It seems that Zhu Liang has some tricks up his sleeve. The cultivators discussed animatedly, unable to calm down for a long time. On the vermilion bird altar, Su Zimo looked at the 4 sacred clan corpses at his feet and gradually calmed down. Other than him, no one could see that Zhu Liang had been able to escape mainly because of his intentions. On one hand, Zhu Liang was a sacred clan member of the ancestral fire's sacred land. The reason why he had the opportunity to fight for the virtuous golden lotus was also because of Uncle Feng of the ancestral fire's sacred land. Su Zimo didn't know much about the ancestral fire's sacred land. He was worried that after killing Zhu Liang, Uncle Feng wouldn't be easy to deal with. On the other hand, if he exposed an opening and gave Zhu Liang a chance to escape, his only opponent would be Qin Yan. He could easily kill her. Although this battle didn't seem long, fighting against the saints had consumed a great deal of his energy. There were still 4 supreme heavenly venerables standing beside him. Aside from the young girl, he might have to face 3 more supreme heavenly venerables. He had to conserve his energy to avoid any mistakes. In reality, he was unable to divert his attention to pay attention to Fan Yun and the other 2 during the great battle just now. As for the 3 people watching from the side, as they witnessed this battle up close, they could feel the struggle between the saints and the terrifying methods that erupted. They were so scared that all the blood drained from their faces. Su Zimo lowered his head and looked at the Avicii and Netherworld swords. In this battle, these 2 swords had played a major role in the annihilation of the 4 great sacred clans. Su Zimo became more and more curious about the origin of the black-robed man. The Qinglian and Crimson Lotus swords, after being reforged by this person, had transformed into such terrifying divine weapons. The bloodline of the sacred clan was indeed powerful. The Avicii and Netherworld swords were incomparably sharp and didn't have a single drop of blood on them. However, after killing the 4 great sacred clans, there was some sacred blood on them that was dripping slowly. Su Zimo shook his hands and shook off the sacred blood on the Avicii and Netherworld swords. He turned to look at Fan Yun, Pang Jian, and Jiu Ran. "Do the 3 of you want to come at me together?" Su Zimo asked indifferently. The battle of the heavenly venerables was not over yet. The only heavenly venerate left on the Vermilion Bird altar was a supreme heavenly venerate. When Fan Yun and the other 2 heard Su Zimo's question, they trembled visibly. "Fellow Taoist, you must be joking." Fan Yun coughed gently. Pang Jian gulped and said hurriedly, "You're a supreme heavenly venerate. I won't fight with you." What a joke! The 4 great sacred clans had fallen one after another because of the title of a supreme heavenly venerate. How could she dare to fight Su Zimo? The shock of witnessing the deaths of the 4 great sacred clans in front of her was too great. "Goodbye." Jiu Ran was even more straightforward. Afraid that he would not even have a chance to escape, he threw down those 2 words, took out his Vermilion Bird token, and disappeared on the spot. Fan Yun and Pang Jian also reacted and took out their Vermilion Bird tokens to escape. In the blink of an eye, only Su Zimo and the girl were left on the Vermilion Bird altar. Su Zimo looked at the girl and smiled. "How should I address you, fellow Taoist?" He had tried his best to ask in a gentle tone, but he had just killed the 4 great sacred clans and was covered in blood and murderous intent. Even if he showed a friendly smile, it still frightened the girl. The girl also took out her Vermilion Bird token and was flustered. She almost dropped it on the ground and wanted to leave without saying anything. "Hey, don't go." Seeing that, Su Zimo hurriedly sent a voice transmission. "Where's Xianmi Mountain?" The girl's body was shrouded in a layer of light. Before she disappeared, a voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. "It's in the southwest direction. You'll know when you get there. I injured you just now. Why you're not allowed to tell on me?" The girl's voice disappeared along with her figure. Su Zimo smiled when he heard that. The reason why the girl was so innocent and did not tell him her name was most likely because she was worried that he would tell on her. Su Zimo sorted out the treasures of the 4 great sacred clans and put them away. At that moment, he was the only name left on the Vermilion Bird ranking. The words Supreme Heavenly Venerate were written above his name. Seeing that, Su Zimo picked up his Vermilion Bird token and left. As soon as he returned to the ancestral fire's sacred ground, a powerful force enveloped him. "It's me." At the same time, Uncle Feng's voice sounded in his mind. Su Zimo did not resist. It was the power of the Space Great Tao. Under the gazes of many cultivators, Su Zimo's figure disappeared into thin air. When he reappeared, he was already in the quiet courtyard. Uncle Feng appeared as well. "Thank you, Senior." Su Zimo bowed in gratitude. Uncle Feng quickly took him away from the cultivator's line of sight as a form of protection. Furthermore, if not for Uncle Feng, he would not have gotten this opportunity. Uncle Feng asked solemnly, "Su Zimo, are you willing to join the ancestral fire's sacred ground?" Su Zimo froze for a moment before shaking his head. There was a high chance that a sage from the ancestral fire sacred ground was among the 9 masters of the heavenly courts. If he joined the ancestral fire sacred ground, he would attract even more trouble. Su Zimo asked, "Is this the condition for obtaining the merit golden lotus?" Uncle Feng smiled and shook his head. "Since you've already obtained the title of Supreme Heavenly Venerate, the merit golden lotus is yours. I naturally won't go back on my word." However, this process didn't have to be so difficult and dangerous. Sigh. Uncle Feng sighed again with a conflicted expression. Su Zimo could roughly guess the meaning behind Uncle Feng's sigh. Initially, it was just a heavenly venerate grand banquet of the ancestral fire's sacred ground. However, because of the exposure of his creation, Qinglian, the 4 sacred clans came and ultimately led to the current situation. In other words, Uncle Feng did want him to obtain the merit golden lotus initially. However, something went wrong. Why was Uncle Feng helping and protecting him like this? End of chapter. Chapter 3307. Uncle Feng waved his sleeves and the void split open. Rays of dazzling golden light shone from within. Su Zimo's bloodline stirred restlessly. He felt an extremely familiar aura in the void. It came from the same source and was connected to his bloodline. The next moment, a 12th grade golden lotus slowly appeared in the courtyard. Golden light flowed on the lotus stem and leaves. There were special patterns on it, as if it had been burned. Su Zimo knew that it was extremely difficult to make the virtuous golden lotus grow to the 12th grade. His creation Qinglian had accompanied him throughout his cultivation. He had encountered countless opportunities and finally reached the peak of the 12th grade when he entered the true self realm in the middle world. The red lotus of hellfire grew in the blood sea of the netherworld and drank the blood of a saint to reach the peak of the 12th grade. The virtuous golden lotus in front of him was already mature. He could take it and refine it directly. "Take it. You can cultivate here. No one will disturb you." Uncle Feng said, "Today's battle will cause quite a stir in the sacred grounds. You can hide here and avoid the limelight for a while. As for whether to join the ancestral fire sacred ground, you can think about it in the next few days. There's no rush to make a decision. If you leave the ancestral fire sacred ground, you'll be in a very dangerous situation." Su Zimo knew very well what Uncle Feng was referring to by the danger. After this battle, he had killed the 4 sacred clans. The 4 sacred grounds would not let him go easily. Moreover, he had the creation Qinglian, the red lotus of hellfire, and the virtuous golden lotus. Su Zimo suddenly had a trace of doubt. If the sacred grounds pursued this matter, Tao masters would definitely appear. They might even alert great venerables and supreme experts. If he joined the ancestral fire sacred ground, could Uncle Feng really protect him? Uncle Feng was only a supreme expert. Even if he had some status in the ancestral fire sacred ground, could he withstand the pressure of the 4 sacred grounds? "If you let Zhu Liang go, he won't be grateful to you." Uncle Feng added, "You know his grandfather. He sealed the middle world for many years." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He blurted out, "The Lord of Zhu Tian." Uncle Feng nodded. "You don't have to worry for now. He doesn't know who you are. Furthermore, this saint is currently recuperating in seclusion and has no time to be distracted." Recuperating in seclusion? The Vermilion Heaven Master had returned to the Great Thousand Worlds many years ago and should have recovered by now. There was probably another reason for him to go into seclusion to heal himself. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and said, "If I join the ancestral fire holy land, I won't be able to hide it from this saint. If he makes things difficult for you, I'm afraid it will bring you a lot of trouble." "You don't have to worry about that. If you're willing to join the ancestral fire sacred ground, I won't have any trouble. I have my own ways to protect you," Uncle Feng said indifferently. Su Zimo remained silent. If that was the case, it was very likely that Uncle Feng had the support of a saint-level expert. Only under such circumstances would Uncle Feng have the confidence to go against Zhu Tian sage. Uncle Feng gave a few more words of advice before turning to leave. Su Zimo looked at the merit golden lotus in front of him with a fervent gaze. When the grade 12 merit golden lotus sensed his aura, it transmitted a joyous emotion to him, as though it was a child who had been lost for many years reuniting with his kin. For Su Zimo, the most important thing right now was to fuse with the merit golden lotus and advance his cultivation. As long as he attained greater mastery of the Tao comprehension realm, his essence spirit would have a chance of entering the Tao manipulation realm. At that time, he would be able to release the hundreds of Tao manipulation realm experts in the universe creation diagram. Su Zimo moved and sat on the lotus platform of the merit golden lotus. The merit golden lotus swayed gently and its petals bloomed, wrapping Su Zimo in layers. A series of golden lights spewed out from the lotus holes and surged into Su Zimo's body through his pores. Gradually, a layer of golden light appeared on his skin. A series of crackling sounds could be heard from Su Zimo's body as well. Qinglian's true body was reborn once more. At the same time, inheritance memories surged into Su Zimo's mind one after another, making up for the incomplete memories. Many broken memories were reconnected and gradually became clear. As time passed by, the grade 12 merit golden lotus gradually withered, leaving only a merit lotus platform floating in midair, supporting Su Zimo. The aura within Su Zimo's body was rising continuously. Boundless merit and immortal metal. Although the merit golden lotus did not produce any Dharma treasures, it improved Su Zimo's physique and bloodline tremendously, helping him to create an indestructible golden body with a huge increase in defense. Just the virtuous lotus platform beneath him was a top-notch defensive numinous treasure. At that moment, every single bone in Su Zimo's body was emerald green like jade with a layer of fine flames attached to them. Gradually, golden patterns appeared on the surface of his bones and golden light spread. His marrow was cleansed and his blood was replaced. His bones trembled and produced a series of buzzing sounds. His blood surged and constantly washed his internal organs. After the transformation, Qinglian's true body was flawless. Her blood was surging, and her internal organs were blooming with divine light. Boom! Su Zimo's body trembled, and a chaotic world appeared behind him. There was no distinction between heaven and earth, no light and no darkness. It was blurry and had no beginning and no end. In this chaotic world, another merit golden lotus grew beside Qinglian and the red lotus of karmic fire. The three lotuses swayed and reflected each other, causing the traces of the great Tao to become denser and spread to every corner of the chaotic world. Greater mastery of the Tao comprehension realm, becoming a great heavenly venerable. At the same time, Su Zimo's essence spirit also soared after fusing with the merit golden lotus. He broke through the essence spirit realm and stepped into the Tao manipulation realm, reaching the level of a Tao venerable. Success! At that moment, Su Zimo could suppress Zhu Liang and the other four without using the Avicii and Netherworld swords and just relying on the power of his physical body and bloodline. In Su Zimo's mind, some images appeared again after the completed memories. After the chaos exploded, it turned into 4 rays of light, black, gold, red, and green, scattering at the end of the void. However, 4 lotus seeds fell in the southeast direction of the vast thousand world. That was the territory of the chaotic sacred land. Su Zimo shook violently and woke up from his memories. It seemed that the 4 lotus platforms derived from Qinglian were scattered all over the trichiliocosm. The 4 lotus seeds fell in the southeast region of the vast thousand world back then. However, his memory fragments were still incomplete, and he could not see the exact location of the 4 lotus seeds. He could only roughly determine that the 4 lotus seeds should have fallen in the same place and not too far away. There must be a reason why Qinglian scattered the 4 lotus seeds in the southeast region of the vast thousand world. He just did not know if the 4 lotus seeds were still there after so many years. If he could find the 4 lotus seeds, it might be another fortuitous encounter for him. Chapter 3308. Apart from the merit golden lotus, his greatest gain from this trip to the ancestral fire's sacred ground was news of Daiyu. Su Zimo could not wait to find Daiyu. However, he was also clear. Given his current situation, There was a high chance that he would bring an unpredictable disaster to Daiyu if he headed to Xianmi Mountain in the Southwest Territory to search for her. At the very least, he had to tide over the upcoming crisis before he could make a move. If he did not intend to join the ancestral fire's sacred ground, hiding here for a long time was not a solution. Perhaps, he might even have to return to the Southeast Territory. On one hand, the chaos sacred ground was there to begin with. On the other hand, according to his inherited memories, the 4 lotus seeds fell in that direction as well. Su Zimo entered the universe creation diagram with his spirit consciousness. Many cultivators inside sensed it and appeared one after another. Master, your essence spirit has already entered the Tao manipulation realm? Supreme Lin Meng asked hurriedly after detecting Su Zimo's essence spirit realm. The other Tao venerables were pleasantly surprised as well. This meant that they could finally leave the universe creation diagram and return to the greater thousand world after more than 6 billion years. Su Zimo nodded. I'm currently in the ancestral fire's sacred ground. It's not convenient for you guys to appear yet. It's fine, it's fine. Supreme Lin Meng laughed loudly. Among the Tao venerables, there were some who were displeased. After being trapped in the universe creation diagram for so many years, everyone wanted to leave as soon as possible. However, judging from Su Zimo's tone, there did not seem to be an exact time limit. There might be some trouble coming up. Su Zimo explained briefly about the fight with the 5 sacred clans in the ancestral fire's sacred ground. He did not mention anything about the Merit Golden Lotus. Su Zimo said, there's a high chance that the experts of the 4 sacred grounds will come knocking if we leave this place. The Tao venerables present frowned and looked worried when they heard that Su Zimo had offended the 4 sacred grounds. Supreme Lin Meng's expression was grim as he pondered for a moment. Given our current strength, we might have a chance against a sacred ground. There's definitely no chance of winning against the 4 sacred grounds. After Su Zimo had fused with the 3 lotuses, he could already sense that 4 of the living beings in the universe creation diagram had stronger bloodlines than others. Apart from Lin Meng, there were 3 others. These 4 should be from the sacred clan of the primal chaos sacred land. Due to the universe creation diagram, none of the beings born here have undergone ancestral awakening, Qinlai said. The sacred land of primal chaos was destroyed, Lin Meng said. Most of the sacred clan members died in battle. Only the 4 of us remain. Supreme Lin Meng pointed at the 3 people beside him and introduced them to Su Zimo. These 3 were all supreme beings of the sacred clan, 2 men and 1 woman, and all of them were rather old. The man on the left had a long beard that fluttered in the wind. His Taoist name was Evergreen. The woman in the middle was graceful and beautiful. Her Taoist name was Hua. The man on the right had a pale face and was surrounded by layers of yin energy. His Taoist name was Huayan. Although Su Zimo's cultivation was far inferior to the 3 of them, he could sense their true forms with his bloodline. Huayan's true form was a locust tree. He'd devoured countless ghosts and spirits, cultivated his own intelligence, and attained the great Tao. That was why his body was filled with yin energy. Huayan said coldly, even when the primal chaos sacred land was at its peak, it couldn't withstand the combined attacks of the 4 sacred grounds. What more now? Supreme Evergreen said, the main reason is that no saint has been born among us. If the saints of the 4 sacred grounds were to attack, we wouldn't be able to stop them even if we worked together. Huarua said, only if we return to the greater thousand realms as soon as possible will we have a chance to reach the saint realm. Su Zimo said, as far as I know, the saints won't interfere in a conflict like this. If they kill beings below the saint realm, they'll be tainted by karma and their combat strength will be affected. They might even be punished by the heavens and die. Supreme Lin Meng and the others were dumbfounded upon hearing this. Su Zimo saw their strange expressions and couldn't help but ask, you don't know about this? Lin Meng shook his head. Saints will indeed be tainted by karma if they kill ordinary beings, and their combat strength will be affected. However, I've never heard of heavenly punishment. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes and fell into deep thought. He'd learned about this from Uncle Feng. There was no need for Uncle Feng to lie about this. However, Lin Meng and the others had no idea about this. Su Zimo carefully recalled what Uncle Feng had said. Uncle Feng had only said that tainting karma might lead to heavenly punishment. Could it be that heavenly punishment only appeared after the great upheaval more than 6 billion years ago? That was why Lin Meng and the others didn't know. This also meant that heavenly punishment might not be the laws of the heavenly Tao, but controlled by someone else. The heavenly punishment's sacred land. Su Zimo's heart shook. At this moment, Su Zimo sensed something and left the universe creation diagram, returning to the residence. Congratulations on your improvement in cultivation, young friend. Uncle Feng stood not far away and smiled at Su Zimo, asking, "What do you think of my suggestion?" Su Zimo looked apologetic and cupped his fists. "Thank you for your kindness, senior. However, it's inconvenient for me to join the ancestral fire's sacred ground due to my special identity. I was about to bid farewell to you as well. Since that's the case, I won't force you." Uncle Feng pondered for a moment and said, "This is your opportunity. Since you're unwilling to join, I'll answer a question for you as a parting gift." "Can I ask any questions?" Su Zimo asked. "Of course. I'll tell you everything I know." Uncle Feng smiled gently. Su Zimo asked directly, "Senior, may I know where the Black Lotus of Destruction is?" Uncle Feng was stumped by that question and shook his head. "I don't know." Uncle Feng suddenly paused and changed his words after a moment of silence. "The Black Lotus of Destruction is a secret of the sacred ground, so I can't tell you. Please change your question." Su Zimo had been observing Uncle Feng's expression. At first, Uncle Feng did not seem to know the whereabouts of the Black Lotus of Destruction. However, after a moment of silence, he changed his words. What was even stranger was that Uncle Feng did not seem to tell him the whereabouts of the Black Lotus of Destruction, but he also indirectly told him that the Black Lotus of Destruction was among the sacred grounds. Could it be that someone had said something to him while Uncle Feng was silent, causing him to change his words? If it was something else, Su Zimo still had many doubts in his heart. Why did Uncle Feng help him? What happened in the vast thousand domains more than 6 billion years ago? What was going on with the heavenly punishment? Who was the black-robed man? He had too many doubts in his heart, but none of them were as important as that. Su Zimo was silent for a long time before he slowly said, "In the small thousand domains, an old friend of mine was very talented, but she could not make a breakthrough in her cultivation realm. In the end, she ran out of life and died. I guarded her coffin for a year and never left, but her body disappeared into thin air, leaving only a piece of clothing. Senior, please enlighten me. What is going on? Is she dead or alive? Or has she reincarnated?" To be precise, this was not a question. However, Uncle Feng did not refute him. He quietly listened to him. Uncle Feng was silent for a long time. After a long while, Uncle Feng did not directly answer. Instead, he asked, "Is this person your relative or cultivation partner?" Su Zimo shook his head and said, "Neither relative nor cultivation partner." Uncle Feng said indifferently, "Since she is neither relative nor cultivation partner, why are you asking about her?" "This matter is very important to me." Su Zimo thought for a while and said, "She is also very important to me. I am worried and want an answer." Uncle Feng's expression was somewhat complicated. He was silent. When Su Zimo saw that, he realized that there was a high chance that Uncle Feng knew something. He quickly said, "Senior, if it is not convenient for you to say, you can give me some clues. I will find the answer myself." Uncle Feng looked deeply at Su Zimo and said, "Come with me. Someone will give you the answer." Chapter 3309. Uncle Feng waved his sleeves and brought Su Zimo into the void. In the blink of an eye, the two of them arrived at a majestic, beautiful, lush mountain peak. At the foot of the mountain, there was a secluded and unique villa surrounded by clear water and withered willows. When they arrived, Su Zimo raised his head and saw a plaque hanging above the villa with the words Guyao Residence. For some reason, his heart skipped a beat when he saw those words. He seemed to have thought of something but did not dare to think too deeply. "Go on in." Uncle Feng said, "Master is inside." Master? Su Zimo was enlightened. He had previously guessed that there might be a saint-level expert backing Uncle Feng. That person must be the master of this Guyao residence. Su Zimo took a deep breath and pushed open the wooden door gently with both hands, stepping into the residence. The residence was filled with mountains and rivers and lush trees. Some ancient buildings were scattered around, and the surroundings were decorated with flower beds, bamboos, and orchards that emitted a faint fragrance. The courtyard was simple but elegant. However, every single decoration was meticulous and was one with the surrounding mountains and rivers. Uncle Feng did not follow him in. Instead, he stood guard outside the door respectfully. Su Zimo walked through the corridors and courtyard alone. His vision opened up and he saw a clear pond with fishes swimming and rippling water. Lotuses bloomed on the surface of the water. In the middle of the pond was an elegant pavilion. In the pavilion, a white-robed woman sat leaning against the railing with her side facing Su Zimo. Her skin was fair as snow and she was elegant. Even her side profile was more beautiful than the mortal world. The white-robed woman seemed to have sensed something and turned around. Su Zimo shuddered as though he was struck by lightning. In the next moment he laughed happily. Yao Shui. After so many years, countless memories flashed through his mind when he saw that familiar face again. Su Zimo was filled with endless joy. He finally knew why Uncle Feng helped and protected him so much. He finally knew why the ancestral fire sacred ground was willing to give him a treasure like the Merit Golden Lotus. He had an answer to many things the moment he saw Yao Shui. But none of that mattered anymore. To Su Zimo, the most important thing was that Yao Shui was still alive. Yao Shui. Su Zimo was excited. He called out softly and took a few steps forward. He was about to cross the stone bridge and reach the water pavilion a few feet away. However, when he reached the stone bridge, his footsteps gradually slowed down, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. The woman in white in the pavilion looked at him with a calm expression. There was even a hint of coldness in her eyes. Su Zimo stopped and carefully looked at the woman in white in the pavilion. It was as if Yao Shui had become so unfamiliar all of a sudden. He was so unfamiliar that he didn't dare to recognize him. "You've got the wrong person." The woman in white said indifferently, "My name is Yaoji, or you can call me Saint Guyao." Su Zimo stared at the woman in white for a long while before slowly shaking his head. He did not want to believe it. No matter what the woman in white before him was called, in Su Zimo's eyes, she was the princess of the great Zhou dynasty, the woman who cried for him in the Dragon Burial Valley, the woman who wore the long robe he made with his own hands and smiled like a flower, Ji Yao Shui, who accompanied him for 1,000 years. "Why? Do you have any difficulties?" Su Zimo asked. Saint Guyao replied, "I'm a saint of the ancestral fire sacred ground, the daughter of a sacred master. What difficulties would I have? Then why did you save me and help me?" Su Zimo pressed on. Saint Guyao did not reply. She merely removed a white jade pendant from her waist and waved it gently. Su Zimo was stunned. "That's the dream token?" The white jade pendant in Saint Guyao's hands was exactly the same as the dream token on his body. Saint Guyao said, "There are 2 dream tokens given to me by a single person. Xie and I each have a token. Since Xie's dream token is in your hands, I naturally have to take care of you for her sake." Could Yao Shui have helped him during this period of time because of Xie and the dream token? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, as though he had thought of something. "I'm sure you've guessed it by now. Since I have the dream token, I naturally know the great dream Dao technique as well," Saint Guyao said indifferently. "To me, that life in Tianhuang mainland was nothing more than a dream. My great Dao is to cultivate in thousands of dream realms. The Yao Shui you speak of is just one of them." Was that the case? Everything was nothing more than a dream for Saint Guyao. That was the reason why Yao Shui could not break through her cultivation realm. That was also the reason why Yao Shui's corpse disappeared. It was merely a dream. Those things, they were all illusions. Those people, they were merely passers-by in the dream. Who would care? Who would remember a dream from the past? Originally, everything was just his wishful thinking. Su Zimo stood on the other side of the stone bridge. Saint Gu Yao stood in the water pavilion. Su Zimo looked at Saint Gu Yao quietly. Just like that, the two of them looked at each other across the stone bridge and did not know each other. Saint Gu Yao had an indifferent expression and looked at Su Zimo as though she was looking at a passerby in her dream. Cold and distant. Su Zimo's heart ached. There was only a stone bridge between the two of them. However, even though the stone bridge was a few feet away, it seemed as though they were at the end of the world. After a long silence, Su Zimo smiled in relief. That's good as well. He looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar face of Saint Gu Yao and opened his mouth slightly, as though he wanted to say something. However, he paused. After a long time, Su Zimo seemed to have finally let go of something in his heart. No matter what, no matter who she was, it was enough to know that Yao Shui, whom he was concerned about, was fine. Between the two of them, whether it was thousands of years of knowing each other or a dream, it was all in the past. Su Zimo took out an old and somewhat white robe from his storage bag and folded it neatly. He bent over gently and placed it on the stone bridge. Thank you for this opportunity, Saint Gu Yao. We will meet again if fate allows. Su Zimo took a deep breath and cupped his hands in farewell. He did not stay any longer and turned to leave. Su Zimo turned around and did not notice that when she heard the words "we will meet again if fate allows," Saint Gu Yao's calm eyes rippled. When the two of them first met and parted for the first time, Su Zimo had said the words "we will meet again if fate allows." At that time, she had smiled and said that it was not fate but they would definitely meet again. That memory that had been sealed for many years surfaced in her mind once more. After Su Zimo's figure completely disappeared, Ji Yaoshue was still staring blankly in the direction where he left. Her eyes gradually turned red. She looked at the familiar robe at the end of the stone bridge. After Su Zimo walked far away, she murmured softly, "Only, you are not that dream." She had already forgotten many of those things and those people. Only that upright green robe was still clear and imprinted in her memory. Currently, he had to head to Canopy State to find the whereabouts of the 4 lotus seeds. He released his chi and blood and ran with all his might towards the southeast of the Great Thousand World as if he wanted to vent something. His mind was also in a mess. After an unknown period of time, he finally walked out of the southern region. Standing at the border of the southern region, Su Zimo stopped in his tracks and looked back in the direction of Gu Yao's courtyard. He stood there quietly for a long time before turning to leave. In fact, the moment he returned to the southeastern region, he had already vaguely sensed the approximate location of the 4 lotus seeds. This was also a change brought about by the improvement of his essence spirit realm and the fusion of the 3 lotus flowers. The 3 lotus flowers were connected to the 4 lotus seeds by blood. Su Zimo roughly determined the direction and headed towards that location. Canopy State. Ever since the death of Sky Spider Palace Master, there were only 4 Palace Masters left in 5 Venoms Palace. Although there were still 3 Supreme Experts in 5 Venoms Palace, they were not qualified to be one of the Palace Masters. Among the original 5 Palace Masters, only Sky Spider and Sky Centipede were at the perfected Tao Manipulation realm and were Supreme Experts. Sky Snake and Sky Scorpion were at the Greater Mastery of Tao Manipulation realm and were Supreme Venerables. Sky Toad had just reached the Lesser Mastery of Tao Manipulation realm and was a Tao Venerable Expert. The main reason why the 5 of them could become the Palace Masters of 5 Venoms Palace was because of the Poison Saint behind them. On this day, the 4 Palace Masters and the Tao Masters of 5 Venoms Palace gathered in the 5 Venoms Hall. There's news from the southern region. The various sacred grounds have indeed appeared at the Ancestral Fire Sacred Grounds Heavenly Venerate Grand Gathering this time. Including the Ancestral Fire Sacred Ground, there are 5 sacred clans. At this point, Sky Centipede Palace Master chuckled and said, "I didn't expect that apart from the one from the Ancestral Fire Sacred Ground, the other 4 sacred clans have all died." The expressions of the Tao Masters below changed drastically when they heard this. This person can actually kill 4 sacred clans? I reckon that a war broke out between the 5 sacred clans. That's why this person had the chance to reap the benefits. Sky Scorpion Palace Master said, "No matter what, the 4 sacred grounds will definitely not let the matter rest after losing 4 sacred clans. This person doesn't have long to live." "Where is he now?" a Tao Master asked. "I'm not sure." Sky Snake Palace Master shook his head slightly and said, "It said that someone saw him in the southeastern region. This person still dares to come back? Otherwise, where can he hide?" After offending the 4 sacred clans, there's no place for him in the vast 1,000 domains other than the war-torn Northwest. Report. At this moment, a long howl came from outside the main hall. A 5 Venoms Palace Heavenly Venerable rushed in and stepped into the main hall. He knelt in front of the Tao Masters and said loudly, "Palace Masters, Su Zimo has appeared in Kanagai State." The eyes of the 4 Palace Masters lit up when they heard this. "Is he alone?" Sky Toad Palace Master asked. "Yes, he's alone," that Heavenly Venerable answered. The 4 sacred grounds had their eyes on Su Zimo and wanted to snatch the creation Qinglian and the red karmic fire lotus. Naturally, 5 Venoms Palace did not dare to get involved. However, if they could kill this person in Kanagai State, they could avenge Sky Spider Palace Master. On the other hand, they could also hand Su Zimo over to the 4 sacred grounds to claim credit. Perhaps they could gain a lot of benefits. The 4 Palace Masters communicated with each other through divine consciousness. Sky Centipede Palace Master said in a low voice, "Everyone, follow me and follow him from afar. Don't attack first. Carefully check if there are other experts following around." With Sky Spider Palace Master as an example, the 4 Palace Masters did not dare to be careless. They were afraid that there would be experts like Xiemye around Su Zimo. End of chapter. Chapter 33:11. Su Zimo did not have the intention to return to Kanagai State. He merely headed in the direction of the 4 lotus seeds and passed by this place. Not long after he set foot in Kanagai State, he had already sensed that someone was spying on him. He knew that Kanagai State was filled with poisonous bugs, and the feeling of being spied on most likely came from the many poisonous bugs hidden in the corners. The news of his arrival would spread to 5 Venoms Palace very quickly. Su Zimo sneered internally. 5 Venoms Palace was the one that spread the news of him possessing the creation Qinglian bloodline. If 5 Venoms Palace dared to come looking for him, he did not mind removing them from Kanagai State. Although the hundreds of Tao Venerables in the universe creation diagram could not fight against the 4 sacred grounds, destroying 5 Venoms Palace was a piece of cake for them. To be precise, he could do whatever he wanted in the entire Southeast territory with this strength. Su Zimo had no intention of covering up his tracks at all as he traveled openly. True enough. Not long after, he sensed a trace of faintly discernible hostility from afar. If not for his sharp spirit perception, he would not have been able to detect it with his spirit consciousness alone. Su Zimo continued forward without batting an eyelid. More and more hostile auras gathered around him. They followed him all the way but never showed themselves. Su Zimo sneered internally. He wanted to see how long these people could endure. In reality, the experts of 5 Venoms Palace were more cautious and patient than Su Zimo had imagined. Just as he was about to leave the vicinity of Kanagai State, the Tao Venerables of 5 Venoms Palace appeared under the lead of the 4 Palace Masters and surrounded Su Zimo. "Fufu." The Sky Centipede Palace Master chuckled and raised his voice. "This must be the Primal Chaos Palace's Palace Master Su, who has risen to fame recently." Su Zimo did not reply and merely looked around. Apart from the 4 Palace Masters of 5 Venoms Palace, there were more than 30 Tao Venerables, including a few Great Venerables and 3 Supremes. "Palace Master Su, don't be nervous." The Sky Snake Palace Master saw that Su Zimo was silent and thought that he was scared speechless. He could not help but grin and say, "We also heard that Palace Master Su made a name for himself in the ancestral fire sacred land and wanted to invite you to the 5 Poisons Palace as a guest. Of course, you killed a Tao sovereign of my 5 Poison Palace, and a Palace Lord also died because of you. This debt is just right for me to settle with you. Have all the Tao sovereigns of your 5 Venoms Palace come?" Su Zimo suddenly asked. The Scorpio Palace master laughed heartily and asked, "What? Do you think that our Five Venoms temple is not ostentatious enough?" "There's a big difference." Su Zimo said indifferently, "These few people are not enough to move me." Ha! The Tao masters of the Five Venoms Palace burst into laughter. If they hadn't followed Su Zimo for a few days and nights, they might have really been intimidated by him. These days, Su Zimo had always been alone. They had already scouted the surroundings and made sure that nothing went wrong. The Sky Centipede Palace master smiled faintly and said, "Su Zimo, you don't have to put on airs. Since we've shown up, we're fully confident. Supreme Siemye can save you once, but he can't save you a second time. I can tell you clearly that unless a saint expert descends from the sky, today will be the day you die." Su Zimo raised his eyebrows and asked, "Are you all planning to bully me with numbers?" "Ha! Too naive." The surrounding Tao masters roared with laughter again. "There's no need to mobilize so many people to deal with a mere great heavenly venerable like you. I alone am enough." The Sky Centipede Palace master changed the topic and smiled sinisterly. "However, since you're called a supreme heavenly venerable, our Five Venoms Palace has to show you some respect. That's right. Let's bully him with numbers today and let him know why he died." The Tao masters of Five Venoms Palace were eager to give it a try. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he took out the universe creation diagram and opened it slowly. "I know a little about bullying with numbers." Before he finished his sentence, figures flew out of the universe creation diagram one after another. There were hundreds of them and they descended around Su Zimo. All of them had powerful auras and the weakest among them was a Tao master. Among them, there were close to 100 great venerables and more than 20 supremes. Pissed. The expressions of the Five Venoms Palace experts changed as they gasped. Indeed, there were no saints. However, the formation of hundreds of Tao masters descending from the sky was truly terrifying. There were more than 10 times their number. Furthermore, there were more than 20 supremes. Even the Five Venoms Palace experts were not enough to deal with those 20 supremes. "Oi!" The Sky Toad Palace master's face was pale and his voice trembled. "What are you trying to do?" The Sky Centipede Palace master was shocked as well. He took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. Gulping, he cupped his fists slightly and said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoists, you look unfamiliar. May I know which faction you are from?" "Chaos Palace, of course." Su Zimo smiled and asked, "Can't you tell that they're all Tao masters of the plant race?" The Tao masters of Five Venoms Palace were shocked by the formation before them and could not be bothered to check out the race of those people. They only checked after Su Zimo's reminder. True enough. All of them were experts of the plant race. Furthermore, all of them seemed extremely excited after descending from the sky. Their eyes shone as they sensed the aura around them, sending chills down the spines of everyone from Five Venoms Palace. Supreme Lin Meng and the other hundreds of Tao masters were almost driven crazy after being trapped in the universe creation diagram for more than 6 billion years. How could they not be excited now that they had returned to the vast thousand world? They could not wait to find 2 people to kill. "Fellow Taoists, I'm afraid there's been some misunderstanding about what happened today." The Sky Centipede Palace master pretended to be calm and forced a chuckle. Supreme Lin Meng did not even look at him. He merely turned to Su Zimo and bowed slightly, asking, "Master, what's going on?" "Master." Everyone from Five Venoms Palace shuddered when they heard that name. Su Zimo said, "These are the cultivators of Five Venoms Palace. Previously, they were hunted down and fled to the southern region. Now, they're here to bully me with their numbers." "Understood." Supreme Lin Meng nodded and looked at the Tao masters around him, saying in a deep voice, "Everyone, don't hold back anymore. Attack and leave no one alive." Boom, boom, boom. A series of loud sounds echoed from the bodies of Supreme Lin Meng and the other hundreds of Tao masters. Their blood chi surged as they controlled their great Taos to form weapons and charged towards everyone from Five Venoms Palace. The eyes of those from the Chaos Sacred Land were bloodshot. There were only slightly more than 30 Tao masters in Five Venoms Palace. Even if 10 of them ganged up on one of them, there were too many wolves and too little meat. There was not enough for them to split. The group of Tao masters stayed in the universe creation diagram all day long and sparred with each other, but they did not stop until they reached a certain point. After so many years of not seeing blood, it was rare for them to be able to attack without restraint. All of them seemed to have gone mad. End of chapter. Chapter 33:12. There was no need for Su Zimo to take action in this battle. The Tao Masters in the universe creation diagram alone were enough to suppress all the 30-odd Tao Masters of the 5 Poison Palace. The Sky Centipede Palace Master and the others initially wanted to restrain Su Zimo and reverse the situation. However, they could not break through the attacks of Supreme Master Lin Meng and the others at all. Instead, they fell deeper and deeper, and in the end, they did not even have a chance to escape. The hundreds of Tao Masters in the universe creation diagram joined forces to form an encirclement. Great Tao intertwined in the void, forming an inescapable net. Su Zimo carefully observed the battle between the Tao Masters from the side. Although he had fought with Tao Masters before, the battle was brief and he did not know much about the fighting style of Tao Masters. However, this battle gave him a new understanding of the battle between Tao Masters. A Tao-comprehending realm celestial master could use a world and the traces of great Tao in it to evolve many great Tao visions. However, after stepping into the Tao-controlling realm, there was no difference between world and Tao. The Tao world was one, the world was Tao, and Tao was the world. Great Tao was formless. However, in the hands of a Tao-controlling realm Tao master, it could be manifested. It was not a vision, but condensed into substance and turned into many divine weapons. In short, after stepping into the Tao-controlling realm, the great Tao cultivated was no longer illusory. It would turn into a group of sharp weapons in the hands of a Tao master. Great Tao was like a weapon. What a Tao master needed to cultivate was how to better control the great Tao, master it, and use it like an extension of his arm. It was like tempering a treasure sword. A treasure sword was sharp, but how to use it and exert the greatest power of the treasure sword required continuous practice. Perhaps the initial success of the Tao-controlling realm was still a little unfamiliar with controlling the great Tao. As one's understanding of the great Tao deepened, one would become more proficient in controlling the great Tao until it reached the peak of perfection. In this regard, Wu Dao's original body had an incomparable innate advantage, because he was the one who created the martial Tao. No matter if it was Tao comprehension or Tao control, Wu Dao's main body would be able to grasp them very quickly. He didn't need to spend a lot of time accumulating them, and his cultivation base would also rise very quickly. This was also why Wu Dao's true body had already stepped into the Tao manipulation realm when he entered the 4 flame mountain ranges. After absorbing and refining the 3 heavenly fires, the number of flames that Wu Dao's original body could control had reached 12. And every one of them was one of the strongest flames in the world. Each type of flame could be cultivated into a great Tao on its own. However, even though Wu Dao's cultivation base had increased rapidly, he was still unable to leave the Netherblood Sea and was unable to help Qinglian's true body. Furthermore, Wu Dao's true body still hadn't found a solution for Tao integration. The so-called Tao unification to become a saint was the fusion of the cultivator's body and the great Tao into one. Once one stepped into the saint realm would become the great Tao itself, and one would gain eternal life. No matter how proficient a Tao-controlling realm cultivator was in controlling the great path, it was still child's play in front of a saint of the great path. The process of Tao unification was also the most dangerous. The slightest carelessness could lead to death. In this great battle, Su Zimo stayed out of it. As he watched the battle, he recalled his trip to the ancestral fire's sacred ground. The Black Lotus of Destruction shouldn't be in the ancestral fire's sacred ground. And Yao Shui had given him a hint that the Black Lotus of Destruction was related to the sacred ground's secrets. In other words, the Black Lotus of Destruction should be in the Yin-Yang sacred ground, Tian Fa sacred ground, Void sacred ground, and Space-Time sacred ground. No matter which sacred ground it was, It was probably as difficult as ascending to the heavens to obtain the Black Lotus of Destruction. And after fighting with the sacred clan of the Yin-Yang Sacred Ground, Su Zimo increasingly felt that the candlelight and nether fluorescent divine stone in his eyes were extraordinary. These two divine stones had even begun to awaken some kind of consciousness. Fortunately, the two divine stones didn't have any resistance or hostility towards him. Yao Shui had once mentioned that the dreamlike token was given to him by one person. She and Xie each had a token. Who was this person? Su Zimo's thoughts were in a whirl as the battle gradually came to an end. More than 30 Dao venerables of the Five Venoms Palace were all dead. None of them escaped. The poisonous insects hidden in every corner had long fled in fear. After today, the Five Venoms Palace would be removed from the canopy state. The surrounding vegetation swayed gently, transmitting bursts of joyful emotions. Supreme Lin Meng and the others cleaned up the battlefield, sorted out the many spoils of war, and handed them over to Su Zimo. You can keep these. Su Zimo was quite generous and simply waved his hand. After all, he didn't participate in this battle. Moreover, most of the treasures weren't very useful to him at the moment. Thank you, my lord. Supreme Lin Meng and the others thanked him. Some Dao venerables just nodded symbolically. In their opinion, this was only natural. This time, Su Zimo didn't let Supreme Lin Meng and the others return to the universe fortune diagram. After so many years, these Dao venerables were finally free. Even if Su Zimo asked them to return, they might not be willing. After all, they were always under the control of others in the universe fortune diagram. My lord, where do you plan to go from now on? Supreme Huayan said, if the experts of the four sacred clans come, I'm afraid we won't be able to protect you. Su Zimo didn't explain. He just pointed in a general direction. Supreme Huayan and the others frowned slightly, still wanting to say something. Audark Lin Meng shook his head slightly. He steered the spirit boat and sped off in that direction. Hundreds of Dao venerables gathered together. With such a lineup, they traveled through the Great Thousand Domains without any obstacles. No experts from other factions dared to show themselves. About half a month later, Su Zimo and the others finally arrived at the destination. They could see a mountain towering into the clouds in front of them. It stood majestically and majestically. Just a glance from afar was enough to make Supreme Lin Meng and the others feel awe. However, Su Zimo had a different feeling when he sensed this mountain peak. There seemed to be some kind of connection between him and the mountain. This position, Supreme Lin Meng murmured with a puzzled expression. Like the other Dao venerables, he was also bewildered. What's wrong? Su Zimo asked. Supreme Lin Meng explained, this position should be where the Chaos Sacred Land used to be, but it didn't exist more than 6 billion years ago. The group continued forward to get a clearer view. Around that mountain, there were 4 shorter mountain peaks in the shape of lotus flowers. The 4 lotus peaks were of different colors. One of the lotus peaks was lush and verdant, and one was emerald green. The other lotus peak was covered with large amounts of fiery red vegetation. From afar, it looked like a flaming mountain. On the 3rd lotus peak, there were many golden yellow plants growing. The 4th peak was pitch black and almost disappeared into the night. These 4 peaks weren't here before. Supreme Lin Meng shook his head slightly. Su Zimo thought back to his inherited memories. He already had a guess based on the scene in front of him. The surrounding 4 lotus peaks were most likely formed from the 4 lotus seeds from back then. As for the towering mountain in the middle, he didn't know how it had appeared. End of chapter. Chapter 33:13. Su Zimo walked toward the golden lotus peak opposite him. As he approached, his bloodline resonated with the golden lotus peak. Su Zimo paused for a long time. Through the golden lotus peak, an ancient memory entered his mind. Between the 4 lotus peaks and the one in the center, there were several dilapidated ancient buildings. Supreme Lin Meng and the others were astounded when they saw the scene. More than 6 billion years had passed, and things had changed. Through these dilapidated buildings, one could still vaguely see the shadow of the primal chaos sacred land. Su Zimo didn't stop walking. He walked toward the towering mountain in the center surrounded by the 4 lotus peaks. However, as soon as he got close, he felt a strong resistance. He couldn't move forward. Su Zimo didn't force his way in. Instead, he stopped at each of the 4 lotus peaks before closing his eyes to cultivate. Su Zimo passed by the 4 lotus peaks and obtained 3 pieces of inherited memories. Because he didn't obtain the Black Lotus of Destruction, he didn't inherit the memories of the Black Lotus Peak. However, even these 3 pieces of inherited memories were extremely important to him. Apart from helping him comprehend the great Tao of chaos faster, these 3 pieces of inherited memories also recorded a formation. 4 lotus seeds fell here, each transforming into a mountain peak. Between the 4 lotus peaks, a primal chaos formation was formed. As long as he digested these 3 pieces of inherited memories, he could try to activate this primal chaos formation. According to the inherited memories, once the primal chaos formation was activated, even a saint would find it difficult to break through. Unfortunately, these inherited memories weren't complete. Moreover, they didn't record the origins of the mountain in the center. Supreme Lin Meng and the others didn't disturb Su Zimo when they saw him closing his eyes to cultivate. Instead, they cleaned up the dilapidated buildings and tried their best to restore them to their former appearance. 3 days later, 4 giant ships appeared in the southeastern region of the Greater Thousand World. The 4 ships were clearly imprinted with the insignia of the 4 sacred tribes. Everywhere they passed, all living beings avoided them and kept quiet out of fear. At this moment, there were several supreme experts standing on the ships. They were all from the sacred tribes of the 4 sacred lands. I heard that Su Zimo has quite a few surviving members of the Primal Chaos Holy Land by his side. They even destroyed the 5 Venoms Temple. The person who spoke had his hands clasped behind his back. He was the sovereign of the Yin-Yang Sacred Land, Chang Tian. On the next ship, a middle-aged man in a green robe said faintly, "It is said that there are hundreds of Tao masters among these survivors. No one knows where they have been hiding all these years. Until now, they have shown themselves." This was the sovereign of the Tian Fa Holy Land, Qin Yong. "If that wasn't the case, we wouldn't have personally come to resolve this matter," said 9 Shadows, a sovereign of the Void Sacred Land. His voice was like a baby's cry, extremely ear-piercing. Around his body, faint shadows appeared. The sovereign of the Space-Time Sacred Land, Mu Qi, sternly said, "In front of everyone, for members of the sacred race of our 4 sacred lands perished. This debt of blood must be paid with blood." The Supreme Being experts chatted casually with relaxed expressions. Everyone's heart was as clear as a mirror. The surviving members of the Primal Chaos Holy Land and the debt of blood were only secondary. Their primary goal was to seize Qinglian and the Red Lotus of Karmic Fire. They didn't know that the Golden Lotus of Karmic Virtue had become one with Su Zimo. Chang Tian said, "For our 5 sacred lands, the greatest threat is the demons and ghosts of the sacred land of Samsara in the northwest. This can't be a coincidence, can it?" Qin Yong frowned slightly. The northwest has yet to be pacified, and now the surviving members of the Primal Chaos Holy Land have appeared. Will the humans from the Life Sacred Land cause trouble in a few days? "They should be fine," said 9 Shadows. "The humans have been suppressed for the past few years. Their fortunes have waned and they have lost their edge. They no longer dare to contend with our 5 sacred lands." As they chatted, they arrived in front of the Primal Chaos Holy Land. The 4 fortress ships drew the attention of countless Tao sovereigns as they sailed through the skies of the southeastern domain. Every faction realized that something big was about to happen. The experts of the 4 sacred lands have appeared. Haha, the Primal Chaos Holy Land has just recovered. It will probably be destroyed again. It's said that there are hundreds of Tao sovereigns in the Primal Chaos Holy Land. So what? They won't be able to withstand the combined attack of the 4 sacred lands. The Tao sovereigns of the various factions appeared one after another and headed toward the Primal Chaos Holy Land, ready to witness this moment from afar. When the 4 fortress ships arrived, Lin Meng and the others in the Primal Chaos Holy Land were startled awake. "They're here. Is the master still in seclusion?" Huayan asked with a frown. Lin Meng said, "The master's realm isn't high enough. He can't help in this battle. We can only rely on ourselves." Evergreen Sovereign said in a low voice, "We can't fight to the death. If the situation turns bad, we must take the master and flee." Huarua said, "Let's talk to them first. It'll be best if we can avoid a battle." The 4 sacred clans of the Primal Chaos Holy Land discussed for a while, then stood up and walked to the 4 lotus peaks. The other Dao sovereigns also looked solemn, ready to fight at any time. Lin Meng cupped his fists and said, "My name is Lin Meng. May I know the purpose of your visit?" Qin Yong sneered. "You already know the answer." Evergreen Sovereign raised his voice. "More than 6 billion years have passed since that battle. There's no need for you to kill us all, is there? If you want to live, hand over Su Zimo." Mu Qi said calmly. Lin Meng frowned. "The man you speak of is our master, the master of the Primal Chaos Holy Land." Jiao Ying shrieked. "Hand him over and you'll be the masters of the Primal Chaos Holy Land from now on. There's no need for you to lose your lives for a mere Empyrean." His words caused a stir among the Dao sovereigns of the Primal Chaos Holy Land. Lin Meng shook his head. "You jest, fellow Daoist. We'll do our best to protect him since he's our master. The master has no grudge against the 4 sacred lands." Although the 4 sacred clans died at the master's hands during the Ancestral Fire Holy Land's Celestial Venerate gathering, that was because they were fighting for the title of Supreme Celestial Venerate. Everyone fought with their own abilities and can't blame others for their deaths. You'll be the laughingstock of the world if you ask for him because of this. The faces of the 4 sacred lands' Dao sovereigns darkened when they heard this. "There's no need to argue with him." Skyfall waved his hand. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Figures flew out of the 4 ships. The weakest among them were Dao sovereigns, and there were even great sovereigns and supremes. There were nearly 1,000 Dao sovereigns of the 4 sacred lands combined, which was twice as many as the Primal Chaos Holy Land. Skyfall, Qin Yong, Jiao Ying, and Mu Qi all attacked. Their qi and blood surged as they transformed into their true forms and charged forward with the Great Dao. Chapter 33:14. At this moment, one of the lotus peaks behind Supreme Lin Meng and the others rumbled and emitted a dazzling golden light that illuminated the heavens. The golden lotus peak was like a blooming golden lotus, dazzling and eye-catching. Then the second lotus peak shook as well. Azure light filled the air and endless vitality surged. As the 2 lotus peaks shook, a large formation vaguely appeared around the chaotic sacred land. With the 2 lotus peaks as the eye of the formation, countless mysterious runes shone on the formation. All the Dao masters frowned in bewilderment at the sight of this. "Everyone, retreat to the sacred land and use this formation to defend yourselves." At the same time, Su Zimo's voice sounded. Supreme Lin Meng hesitated for a moment, then led everyone back to the chaotic sacred land. If they fought against Chue Tian, Qin Yong, and the others, they might be able to hold on for a while, but there would be casualties among them. If they had a large formation to defend themselves, they would be able to adapt to the situation and advance or retreat. When Supreme Lin Meng and the others returned to the chaotic sacred land, the attacks of the Dao sovereigns of the 4 sacred clans descended. Divine weapons condensed from great Daos fell from the sky like rain. Boom, boom, boom. However, these divine weapons couldn't penetrate the chaotic formation at all. When they fell, they exploded with earth-shattering sounds, causing the azure and golden lotus peaks to shake. Supreme Lin Meng and the others stood in the chaotic sacred land. They sighed in relief when they saw that the 4 sacred lands couldn't break through the formation. It seems that this formation was left behind by the sacred leader. The sacred leader really put in a lot of effort to protect our master. Not only did he have the universe creation diagram, but he also has this formation. I wonder how long this formation can last. While everyone was discussing, Su Zimo was still cultivating in one of the lotus peaks. Over the years, he had only controlled 2 of the chaotic formation's eye points. Apart from the black lotus peak, which he couldn't comprehend due to the lack of inheritance memories, there was another lotus peak that he hadn't fully comprehended yet. Once he controlled this eye, the chaotic formation's power would increase again. This time, it wouldn't just be a passive defense. He could even try to launch a counterattack. Outside the chaotic sacred land, the cultivators of the 4 great holy lands unleashed their chi and blood. They controlled hundreds and thousands of great Daos to continuously attack the great chaos array. However, they were still unable to break through the array's defense. Everyone looked at Su Zimo and the others who were inside, but they couldn't take them down even after a long time. They couldn't help feeling irritated. Jiao Ying shrieked, "This can't go on. We have to think of a way to break this formation." Difficult. Qin Yong shook his head and said, "The vital points of this formation are on the 2 lotus peaks. However, these peaks are indestructible. Not to mention us, even the saints of our clan who came here in the past couldn't take away these 4 lotus peaks." At that moment, the pair of eyes in the sky transformed into yin and yang. 2 beams of divine light shot out and landed on the array of the chaotic sacred land, searching for flaws. After a short while, Skyfall suddenly said, "This grand formation hasn't been activated completely. We have to change directions and attack the other 2 formation cores of this formation." Among the 4 lotus peaks, 2 of them seemed to have awakened. The other 2 were completely silent. Skyfall was right. Su Zimo hadn't controlled the formation cores of these 2 lotus peaks yet. They were indeed the weak points of the chaotic grand formation. When the experts of the 4 sacred lands heard this, they immediately circled around the green and gold lotus peaks in front of them and headed towards the red and black lotus peaks. As expected, everyone's attacks landed on the junction between these 2 peaks, causing the chaotic grand formation to shake continuously. The runes on the grand formation also gradually peeled off, and the light flickered. Eternal Green Supreme frowned slightly and said in a low voice, "Not good. That seems to be the weak point of this grand formation. If they break through it, this grand formation probably won't be able to hold on." Rumble. A loud explosion suddenly erupted. The red lotus peak seemed to be burning. The fire burned brightly. The 3rd formation core was activated. Su Zimo suddenly opened his eyes. With a thought, the aura of the chaotic grand formation suddenly changed. The runes on the grand formation suddenly fell off. As if they had a mind of their own, they transformed into divine weapons and charged into the crowd of the 4 sacred lands. Every formation pattern on the chaotic grand formation was a trace of the Great Tao. These divine weapons were also equivalent to Great Tao weapons. The Tao masters of the 4 sacred lands were caught off guard. Blood mist instantly spread out from the crowd as they were thrown into chaos by the counterattack of the chaotic grand formation. Clang. One of the divine weapons that blocked the chaotic grand formation roared, "Everyone, be careful." The activation of the 3rd formation core of the chaotic grand formation raised the defense of the grand formation to another level. Although the Black Lotus Peak was still a weakness, the connection established by the 3 Lotus Peaks was enough to make up for this weakness. Moreover, under the control of Su Zimo, the chaotic grand formation constantly counterattacked and broke the formation of the 4 sacred lands into chaos. Lin Meng, Eternal Green Supreme, and the others were secretly shocked when they saw this scene. Many Tao venerables looked at Su Zimo with less disdain in their eyes. With this chaotic grand formation alone, Su Zimo was invincible in the Tao manipulation realm. Even the sacred race supremes couldn't get close to him, let alone threaten his life. Only the 4 sacred race supremes were able to withstand the counterattack of the chaotic grand formation. The rest had already been defeated and fled into the distance. The Tao masters of the 4 sacred lands did have some tricks up their sleeves. Apart from the chaotic grand formation's first counterattack, which killed 3 Tao masters and 1 supreme sovereign, the rest had been prepared and managed to survive. Now, only the 4 sacred race supremes were left standing in front of the chaotic grand formation. "Su Zimo!" Jiao Ying screamed, "Come out if you have the guts. What's the point of hiding in there?" When Su Zimo heard that, he could not be bothered with him. Lin Meng laughed loudly. "You supremes gathered here to deal with a mere great heavenly venerate." Is this what you call a capable person? The way I see it, the 4 sacred lands don't even care about your reputation. Audiobook Hawaiian chuckled coldly. The 4 sacred race supremes' faces darkened, but they couldn't do anything to Su Zimo in the chaotic sacred land. Unwilling to give up, the 4 sacred race supremes struggled with the chaotic grand formation for a while longer. In the end, they had no choice but to retreat into the distance and discuss countermeasures. If this continued, they wouldn't be able to hold on before the formation was breached. Su Zimo, I don't believe you'll just hide in there and not come out. Mu Chi clenched his fists and growled. It's fine. Let's continue like this. I'm not in a hurry. Su Zimo's voice sounded nonchalant, but it only made the 4 sacred race supremes gnash their teeth in anger. Su Zimo wasn't in a hurry. At the very least, he wouldn't be leaving the chaotic sacred land for a while. He still needed to absorb the insights of the great Tao of chaos from the 3 lotus peaks. Then, his cultivation would rise another level. End of chapter. Chapter 33:15. With the protection of the Chaos Array, Su Zimo wasn't worried about the experts of the 4 sacred grounds attacking. He began to cultivate in seclusion, absorbing the insights of the Chaos Great Tao from the 3 lotus seeds. Before entering seclusion, Su Zimo released all the cultivators in the universe creation diagram. Su Ru, Meng Shi, and the others were filled with emotions when they returned to the Chaos Sacred Land in their lifetime. Supreme Lin Meng, Supreme Evergreen, and the other experts also entered seclusion. Some were even preparing to break through to the Sage Realm. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years passed. The experts of the 4 sacred grounds waited outside the Chaos Sacred Land for 1,000 years. Later, they couldn't take it anymore and retreated. They couldn't keep waiting outside. In the eyes of Heaven Chilling and the others, Su Zimo would appear one day, and they would definitely have a chance in the future. In 1,000 years, Su Zimo had already absorbed and refined all the insights of the Chaos Great Tao from the 3 lotus seeds. In the Chaos world, the traces of the Great Tao continued to spread, covering every corner and fusing with the world. His cultivation steadily increased. Finally, on this day, he advanced another level and broke through to the perfected Tao comprehension realm, becoming a supreme heavenly venerable. The power of his essence spirit also increased, reaching greater mastery of the Tao manipulation realm, comparable to a supreme heavenly venerable. In the ruins of the netherworld Blood Sea. In 1,000 years, Wu Dao's cultivation realm had already risen to the perfected Tao manipulation realm. Qinglian's true body had the inheritance memories of Qinglian in the chaos world, so her cultivation speed was extremely fast. Wu Dao was a Tao technique created by Wu Dao's true body. In terms of cultivation, the speed of his true body was even faster than Qinglian's true body. One more step and he would become a sage. However, just as Wu Dao's true body had expected, as his cultivation realm continued to increase, the repulsive force between the martial universe formed by the 3 realms and the origin martial world formed by his physical body had reached the limit. His physical body and essence spirit were the origin martial world. If he wanted to merge the Tao, he would have to merge the 2 worlds. But now, the 2 worlds were like fire and water. Forcefully merging the Tao would only result in death. When he was in the Tao comprehending realm, he could still fuse temporarily. After attaining perfection in the Tao manipulation realm, Wu Dao's main body had attempted to fuse once. However, as soon as the 2 worlds came into contact, he was heavily injured and almost collapsed. His body and soul were destroyed. After recuperating for several months, he finally recovered. The black-robed man watched the entire process, but he did not say a word, as if he did not see anything. The existence of Wu Dao's true body was an anomaly. The path of Tao unification and becoming a saint was impossible. The road to the great Tao was long, and the future was uncertain. He had to carve out his own path. Wu Dao's true body had been pondering for many years, and his 2 true bodies were also communicating with each other. Above the virtuous golden lotus, within the inherited memories of the virtuous lotus seed, Wu Dao's true body smelled a trace of an opportunity. The confusion in front of him had begun to see the light. When Su Zimo fused with the virtuous golden lotus, He noticed that there were traces of some kind of fire on it. Within the golden lotus peak of the chaos formation, there was also an extremely ancient aura of fire that was different from the flames he had seen in his cultivation. Even the 12 flames cultivated by Wu Dao's true body could not compare to it. Wu Dao's true body attempted to comprehend the flame. Another 1,000 years passed. Wu Dao's true body did not make any progress towards the mysterious flame. The power contained in the depths of the flame seemed to have far surpassed his current cultivation realm. Wu Dao's true body began to change his train of thought. Furthermore, he borrowed the aura of the mysterious flame to fuse the 12 flames he controlled into one. Finally, on the 3,000th year, he borrowed a wisp of power from the mysterious flame to fuse the 12 flames into one and condense them into a single flame. At that moment, there was only a single flame left in the martial cultivation universe. His cultivation realm was still at the perfected Tao manipulation realm. However, the existence of the flame had already surpassed the Tao manipulation realm and possessed the power of a saint. Wu Dao's true body called it the Saint Flame of the Great Tao. There were many skeletons of saints buried in the ruins. Wu Dao's true body came to the side of a saint skeleton and looked at it intently. Tao integration to become a saint. Even if a saint died, there would still be some great Tao imprints left on his skeleton. This saint cultivated the Rain Great Tao, which was a branch of the Great Tao of water. Wu Dao's true body tried to use the saint flame of the Great Tao to burn and refine the Great Tao imprints on the saint skeleton. As time passed, the Rain Great Tao was gradually refined by the saint flame of the Great Tao. The birth of the Yuanwu world was an anomaly. It did not enter the cycle of reincarnation, was not in the three realms, and did not have any Great Tao. It was originally empty and silent. However, after the saint flame of the Great Tao refined the Rain Great Tao, another Great Tao appeared in the Yuanwu world. Wu Dao's true body pondered for a moment and continued to look at another saint skeleton. What remained of this saint skeleton was the 5 elements Great Tao. With the help of the saint flame of the Great Tao, Wu Dao's true body continued to refine the 5 elements Great Tao. Compared to the Rain Great Tao, it took much longer to refine the 5 elements Great Tao. After he refined the 5 elements Great Tao, another 5 elements Great Tao would appear in the Yuanwu world. Refining so many Great Taos is equivalent to completely giving up on the hope of becoming a saint. Sensing the actions of Wu Dao's true body, the black-robed man suddenly spoke. Just fusing the physical body and primordial spirit with a Great Tao was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. It was extremely dangerous. The more Great Taos one refined, the harder it was to fuse them. It was like the Great Tao of water and the Great Tao of fire. The two Great Taos opposed each other, and water and fire were incompatible. There was an innate rejection. Wu Dao's true body did not explain anything. Fusing the Tao to become a saint was simply impossible for him. Until now, he still had not thought of the future path. He only vaguely had a general direction and embryonic form in his heart. Wu Dao's true body continued to search for Great Taos to refine in the saint skeleton. Chaos Sacred Land. After Su Zimo cultivated to the peak of the Tao comprehending realm, he sensed that the people of the 4 sacred lands had retreated. He was not in a hurry to leave and continued to cultivate. Time flew. It had been more than 10,000 years since everyone entered the Chaos Sacred Land. Su Zimo had already cultivated to the peak of the Tao comprehending realm, but he was unable to take another step forward and step into the Tao controlling realm. After all, this was a major realm. Unless he obtained the Black Lotus of Destruction or some kind of opportunity, it was very difficult to break through just by cultivating in seclusion. During this period of time, in the Chaos Sacred Land, there was a supreme being who tried to fuse the Tao to become a saint, but it ended in failure. Su Zimo watched as the body of a supreme being dissipated bit by bit, turning into powder, fusing into the Great Tao and dying. He had long known the dangers of fusing the Tao to become a saint. But it was far less shocking than seeing it with his own eyes. The supreme being died in such a way. Once this step was taken, there was no way out. Once the Tao fused failed, it meant that the body and Tao would disappear, and one would die. Since ancient times, many people wanted to fuse the Tao to become a saint and reach eternal life, but in the end, they fell in front of eternal life. And this Supreme Being's failure to break through to the saint realm made the other Tao venerables more cautious. For 10,000 years, no one tried to fuse the Tao. End of chapter. Chapter 33:16. 10,000 years ago, news of Su Zimo leading his people into the chaos sacred land and fending off the experts of the 4 sacred lands with the help of the Grand Formation had gradually spread throughout the greater thousand domains. Over the years, more and more plant and vegetation cultivators and living beings had returned to the continent. The living conditions of the plant race in the southeastern territory were far better than before. The various forces of the 108 states were wary of the chaos sacred land strength, so they restrained their bullying of the plant race. Some of the more far-sighted races had even predicted that the chaos sacred land would lead an all-encompassing purge and revenge in the southeastern territory. These forces had begun to withdraw from the southeastern territory. In fact, this was exactly what had happened. Over the years, since the experts of the 4 sacred lands had long since retreated, Lin Meng and the others had begun to discuss how to take back all the 108 states that had been occupied by the alien races. One day, Lin Meng and the others gathered in the Chaos Hall and roughly explained their plan to Su Zimo. Su Zimo smiled and said, "I don't think I have anything to do with this." Lin Meng smiled and said, "My lord, your cultivation isn't high enough. There's no need for you to put yourself in danger. You can just guard the chaos sacred land." If they wanted to expel the alien races from the southeastern territory, they would have to face the top forces of the 108 states. A battle between Tao sovereigns would break out. Su Zimo was only in the perfected Tao comprehending realm, so he naturally couldn't change the situation in front of the Tao sovereigns. Su Zimo smiled and said, "Then I'll leave the matters here to you. I'm going out to find an old friend." "Where are you going, my lord?" Lin Meng asked. "Xianpin Mountain in the southwestern territory." Su Zimo didn't hide anything. He asked, "Have you heard of this place?" "The southwestern territory?" Evergreen pondered and said, "This place is far from the southwestern territory and the southern region. It's a long journey. Don't run into any danger." "It's fine. I can protect myself now." Su Zimo said, "There are still flaws in the chaos formation. I'll leave the universe fortune diagram on the Black Lotus Mountain to temporarily replace the formation core. If the 4 great holy lands make a comeback, even without me presiding over it, it would be difficult for them to break through the great primal chaos array." Supreme Huayan frowned slightly. He was about to speak when Supreme Lin Meng suddenly said, "The profound valley mountain that Master mentioned seems to be a force established by the human race. It's not just Profound Valley Mountain. The entire southwest region is occupied by humans." The speaker was Mei Liang, a Tao master who had just joined the chaotic sacred land a few years ago. Hearing this, Supreme Lin Meng, Supreme Evergreen, and the others were surprised. Supreme Evergreen said, "According to what I know, the human race is a race that was born later on, and their numbers are few. More than 6 billion years ago, although there were many powerful saints in the human clan, most of them died in that turmoil." The Mei Liang holy man shook his head and said, "I don't know either. The human race now rules the southwestern region. There are 36 paradises and 72 blessed lands, all of which are occupied by human holy masters. That said, even though the human race is spread throughout the great Kiliacosm, their status and strength are much worse than before. They're about the same as our Plantwood clan." Su Zimo seemed to be deep in thought. According to Supreme Evergreen and Supreme Mei Liang, the human race wasn't considered a large race more than 6 billion years ago. However, after that turmoil, the human race spread throughout the great Kiliacosm. Their status was also much lower than before. Supreme Mei Liang said, "Maybe it's because the human race has no saints." "The human race has no saints?" Su Zimo asked. Supreme Mei Liang nodded and said, "All these years, the human race hasn't produced any saints. For more than 6 billion years, the human race had no saints. This was too unusual. No matter how difficult it was to merge with the Tao and become a saint, Su Zimo didn't believe that the human race hadn't produced a single saint in more than 6 billion years. He had similar doubts in the Great Kiliacosm. The human race seemed weak, but more than half of the beings who eventually became great emperors were humans. Moreover, the human race was inextricably linked to many other races. For example, although the Heavenly Eye race, the Protoss, and many other races were born with powerful bloodlines and all kinds of innate abilities, they were all in human form. This time, he was going to the Southwest Territory to look for Daiyu. On the other hand, he might be able to find some answers there. Su Zimo gave a few more instructions before leaving the Chaos Sacred Land and speeding toward the southwest. After reaching perfection in the Tao comprehending realm, Su Zimo's speed had increased by a lot. In less than a month he had returned to the border between the southeast and the south. At this moment, Su Zimo stopped in his tracks. Not far away, he saw a person. Supreme Lin Meng. Su Zimo squinted slightly, a complicated emotion flashing through the depths of his eyes. Then, he smiled and asked, "Supreme Lin Meng, are you here to see me off?" Supreme Lin Meng remained silent. Su Zimo laughed again and said, "Then you're here to kill me." Hearing this, Supreme Lin Meng's expression changed slightly. He said indifferently, "You don't seem surprised?" "Not really," Su Zimo said. Supreme Lin Meng was a bit confused. He asked, "When did I reveal any flaws?" Su Zimo shook his head and said, "You didn't reveal any flaws from the beginning to the end. You were also very respectful to me." "Then why did you guess that I was here to kill you?" Supreme Lin Meng asked. Su Zimo smiled faintly and said, "In the Middle Realm, there was someone who treated me better than you. He even saved my life. However, his ultimate goal was to refine me." Supreme Lin Meng asked, "Is that why you were on guard?" "Of course not." Su Zimo said, "When I was young, I read some history books. My situation is similar to the situation of a young emperor. The young emperor had just ascended the throne and couldn't suppress the various factions. The generals and ministers under his command were too powerful, and they didn't have much affection for the young emperor. It was easy for them to betray him. That's why I thought that some of you would want to make a move on me and take my place." Supreme Lin Meng nodded and said, "Actually, the Sacred Master had expected this to happen. That's why he left you the universe fortune diagram and the chaos formation to suppress us. Unfortunately, you left the Chaos Sacred Land and the protection of the chaos formation. You even left the universe fortune diagram in the Sacred Land." After a short pause, Supreme Lin Meng said, "I don't understand. If you knew that someone would make a move on you, why did you leave the Chaos Sacred Land?" Su Zimo smiled and said, "Of course I did it on purpose." "On purpose?" Supreme Lin Meng raised his brows slightly. Su Zimo said, "I knew that someone would make a move on me, but I didn't know who it was. If I stayed in the Chaos Sacred Land, you wouldn't have a chance. Since that's the case, I'll create a chance for you." End of chapter. Chapter 33:17. Compared to his experiences in the dimensional realm, Su Zimo's journey to the Greater Thousand Realms had been much smoother. Of course, the Demon Lord, Saint Gu Yao, and even the Primal Chaos Sacred Leader had taken care of him, but Su Zimo didn't dare to be careless. The experts in the Qian Kun fortune diagram were far more powerful than him. Even some heavenly venerables weren't willing to submit to him back then. These Tao venerables and supremes had lived for countless years and experienced countless bloodshed. It didn't make sense for them to willingly submit to him just because of his bloodline. Su Zimo turned to look at the nearby forest and said loudly, "You've been following me for so long. It's time for you to show yourselves." He had sensed that someone had been following him ever since he left the Primal Chaos Sacred Ground. And it wasn't just one. 3 figures appeared in a flash. They were the Primal Chaos Sacred Ground Supremes Evergreen, Hua Ruo, and Huayan. Including Lin Meng, these 4 were all sacred clan members of the Primal Chaos Sacred Ground. Only the sacred clan would have such ambition and courage. "Are you 3 also here to kill me?" Su Zimo asked. Evergreen, Hua Ruo, and Huayan exchanged glances and shook their heads. Lin Meng's expression darkened. Fellow Taoists, are you going to protect him? Huayan frowned. No matter what, he is the sacred leader's successor. It's not appropriate for you to attack him. If Su Zimo could think of this, these three old fellows who had lived for hundreds of millions of years could naturally guess as well. When Su Zimo had decided to leave the primal chaos sacred ground, Evergreen had hinted to him once. When Su Zimo wanted to leave the universe fortune diagram in the primal chaos sacred ground, Huayan had wanted to remind him as well, but Lin Meng had interrupted him. Therefore, when Su Zimo and Lin Meng left the primal chaos sacred ground, the three supremes realized something and followed them. Lin Meng said in a low voice, "Are the three of you counting on him to lead the primal chaos sacred ground to prominence? He's only in the Tao comprehending realm, and his cultivation is too weak. We're only one step away from becoming a saint." Supremacy Evergreen said, "Master, his cultivation base isn't slow either. How long do we have to wait?" Supreme Lin Meng said, "Are the three of you willing to be ordered around by a mere heavenly venerable? You want to suppress us with just a bloodline?" Paragon Hua Ruo suddenly said, "Big brother Lin Meng, you want to make a move against him because of your own selfishness, right? Not bad." There was no way this matter could be hidden from Supremacy Evergreen and the others. Supremacy Lin Meng didn't try to hide it either, and directly admitted it. Lin Meng said, "Do you know how dangerous it is to become a saint? We watched as Puing died, but we couldn't do anything about it. I didn't have the confidence to complete the Tao fusing, so I didn't have the courage to take that step. I cultivate the creation great Tao. If I can obtain his creation, Qinglian, my chances of reaching the Tao integration stage will increase." Supremacy Lin Meng took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Fellow Taoists, I only have one question. Our friendship over so many years can't compare to an outsider who came out of nowhere?" Supremacy Evergreen and the others had complicated expressions on their faces as they remained silent. They had cultivated together back in the primal chaos sacred land and experienced countless dangers together. Later on, they had been trapped in the universe creation diagram for more than 6 billion years. They had sat down and discussed the Tao, drank to their heart's content, and chatted happily. No one else could compare to this kind of relationship. Supremacy Lin Meng said, "If you don't care about our friendship over the years and come to kill me, I won't fight back. I won't fight back." Since Supremacy Lin Meng had said this, Supremacy Evergreen and the others instantly fell into a dilemma. They naturally couldn't attack Supremacy Lin Meng, let alone kill him. However, Su Zimo was the successor of the sacred leader. Although they didn't have a deep relationship with him, he was still their master in name. They were indeed unconvinced by Su Zimo and even looked down on him. However, they had never thought of killing their master and replacing him. Right at that moment, Su Zimo spoke. "The three of you don't have to be troubled. Since Supremacy Lin Meng wants to kill me, this is a matter between us. The three of you can choose not to help either side and stay out of it. No matter who lives or dies, it has nothing to do with the three of you." Supremacy Evergreen and the others heaved a sigh of relief when they heard that. Su Zimo's magnanimity relieved the three of them, but they also felt guilty. If the three of them chose to stay out of it, it would seem like they were not helping either side. However, in reality, it was equivalent to watching Su Zimo die in the hands of Supremacy Lin Meng. After all, the difference between them was too great. They were an entire major cultivation realm apart. No amount of talent or bloodline could make up for such a huge difference. "Master, you can turn around and run later." Supreme Hua Ruo couldn't bear it in his heart and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. "I can help you stall them for a moment." As for the future, Su Zimo did not reply and merely shook his head. Supremacy Evergreen and the others sighed and took a step back one after another. At the sight of that, Supremacy Lin Meng finally relaxed and turned to Su Zimo. "Don't worry, after you die, I'll definitely lead the Chaos Sacred Land to rise again and return to its former glory. Even if you die, you can rest in peace." Su Zimo chuckled. "The reason why you followed me here before making a move is because this place is deserted. After killing me, you can push my death to other factions. You can use this as a reason to rise to the top and gather reputation and people's hearts in the name of revenge to lead the Chaos Sacred Land. That's right. Supremacy Lin Meng nodded. Naturally, he had already deduced all the subsequent plans in his heart countless times. Very good. Su Zimo clapped and smiled. Now, there's only one problem left. What? I don't want to die. That's not up to you. The two's gazes clashed in the air. Their swords were already drawn in just a few words. Even now, Su Zimo remained calm and asked with a smile, "Do you know why I've never made a move in front of you?" Supremacy Lin Meng smiled and said, "Since you're prepared, you must be hiding your trump cards." Then, Supremacy Lin Meng changed the topic and said, "But before today, I've already asked around carefully. You have the strength to kill those above your level with Qinglian's bloodline. Your nascent spirit has even reached the level of supreme monarchs. Your strongest trump card is the two divine swords that kill upon contact with blood. How did you know that?" Su Zimo asked. Supremacy Lin Meng said, "You're very smart, but you're still too young. Know yourself and know your enemy, and plan before you act. I haven't lived my life for nothing. I won't underestimate anyone, even someone as weak as you. With my capabilities, your divine swords won't be able to touch me at all." Su Zimo nodded. As a matter of fact, Supremacy Lin Meng was right. With Su Zimo's current capabilities, he wouldn't stand a chance in a fair fight. Today was the 14th of February. It would be a little difficult for him to run all the way to Xianmi Mountain to celebrate the festival with Dai Yu. Sigh, I can only hope that my fellow cultivators won't be able to celebrate Valentine's Day. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.